Alexander Vinokurov in the pink jersey, the Maglia Rosa. Just lurking behind the HTC Columbia riders now, and keeping out of the way. Exactly the right thing to do. Up towards the front to stay out of trouble, but far enough back to not be in the wind. Let the other guys do the work up at the front. People writing it on Twitter saying, imagine what the Maglia Rosa would look like if somebody from Futon Saveto was wearing it with their shorts. I suppose you could say the same about AG2R actually. Look like Neapolitan ice cream, I'd imagine. 1:52, 53, 54, 55 is the gap. So a minute and 5 seconds taken out now. So it did get right the way up towards 3 minutes again. Well, assuming that we are going to come in for a sprint finish today, Sean, HTC Columbia certainly have Greipel in their armoury to use. But of the other teams, Walter Weyland, Graham Brown, we just mentioned Brown as being a rider who just has to, who can, once he's there, he can be able to follow pretty well. Weyland has done quite well. What about Chris Sutton at Sky, or even, well, there's a couple of guys at Sky who could put a good turn in. Henderson, for example, or Sutton, both have a chance.
Yes, and when you look at the final number of kilometres, it does, you know, it kicks up a little bit in the final 3 kilometres. Not a huge percentage, but 3%, and you know, when you're really going hard, that could affect some of the riders. And you know, Greipel maybe, you know, he's a real strong, powerful, and I think in uphill sprint he might be, you know, that bit more powerful than maybe Brown, for example. Wildlands, they would rather a pan flat finish, and you know, as you go down the list, then Hondo, for example, he's, you know, putting in some good finishes there. And you know, when you look at Henderson, Sutton, those riders, they're always in with a very good chance. And I think today, you know, with that final 3 kilometres being that little bit uphill, it will give maybe the not really better sprinters a better chance today.
Okay, time for another break while we can. It's just business as usual for the guys at the front at the moment. The tall, lanky figure of Michael Barry, Canadian, at the front of this breakaway. It's been foul conditions once again today. A lot of standing water on the road, not just so much the rain. Rained very heavily. Nice shot of the Asymmetrics chainring there. A lot of riders using asymmetrical chain rings now. And Asymmetrics and Q rings, both in the peloton. In fact, interestingly, Gianpaolo Quella in the front has Q rings on, made by Rota, the Spanish company, and the figure of Michael Barry has Asymmetrics rings on. Do a similar job, do the same, have the same sort of function to try and iron out the dead spot, keep the power going over the top of the dead spot, but 2 different systems for doing it. Bradley Wiggins has sworn by the Asymmetrics for a long time. He's been using them for 2-3 years in his bike now, I reckon. People seem to be taking them up. Gap is still around 2 minutes. Let's do a little bit of a history lesson then. A little bit of history anyway. This, you may or may not recall, is the area. One of the descents down towards the finish today is where the late Marco Pantani ran into a black cat, which caused him a massive crash and broke his legs pretty badly. And he had lots of hydrotherapy and so on to get over the breakages, and the rain really coming down very, very heavily now. It's suddenly started to absolutely tip down on the breakaway. It's not quite as far back as the peloton yet, but it will be very soon. And yes, indeed, it's beginning to start hammering down on the boys. Marco Pantani crashing. I don't know what year that was. Can you remember what year that was, Sean, where Pantani had that crash? I think he was still riding for Carrera at the time. 97, I think it was it? Nope, not 97.
No, I think it would
be... I remember it would be earlier than that.
81, 82.
That early? Can't remember. I don't know, I think it might have been in the...
Oh, 91, sorry, 91, 92.
Oh, well, I think somebody will undoubtedly remind us on cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com or the Twitter feed, which is spokesman. But this is where Pantani ran into that black cat. Ironic, isn't it, really? They're meant to be good luck. Although can't remember whether they're meant to be good luck in Italy or not, but from a British perspective. This is foul again, Sean. And what happens to how do you start as a sprinter? And you've been in these situations many, many times. How do you start calculating, thinking, ordering the team to look after this for a sprint finish? Because if the rain's coming down the way it is, it completely alters the type of sprint you can do, surely.
Yes, well, you depend a lot on your lead-out men, the final number of kilometres, that they have got, the calculation right, because in the last number of kilometres, if you have a good team with 3 or 4 riders who can prepare for you today, it's a good situation in these conditions. But they have to know how fast they can take the corners, and if they get it wrong, well, then they're going to take you with them, more than likely, because if they have the speed too high and they go out, well, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to go down with them. And that's what sprinters are like. You really have to go to the limit, and hopefully your lead-out men don't go over the limit. But it's a very, very fine line, and the most experienced riders can get it wrong, and you can get it wrong yourself. And it is going to be a dangerous one. It looks like that the rain is really going to continue all the way now. I'd be surprised if they get out of this, although it's coming down so heavily. We might just be going through an area with 37 kilometres to go. It's possible that they could get out of before the finish, and I think everybody will be hoping for that, because for the sprinters, it's not a nice situation to have to go for a stage in this one, because the risk, is pushed up, the barrier is pushed up much more when you have those conditions. But as a sprinter, you're going to go for it, but that's something sprinters have got. They don't think about coming down. They think about getting to that line and taking the stage victory, thinking about the win.
Let's hope the pictures stay with us, because weather has been disrupting it before now, and it may happen again looking at this weather. The only really difficult bits technically on the run-in today are about 1.5 kilometres out. They go underneath, they go through a tunnel basically, underneath a railway bridge, and then there's a right-hand bend. It's not terribly sharp, but in these conditions it might cause a few problems. Then they go across the Corso Marzini, along the Corso Marzini, and then that hangs a left at just past the 1 kilometre kite. Again, if they're absolutely flat out, may get a few riders sliding out, but after that it's straight all the way up to the line. Although it's not, as Sean was saying, a straight flat run in, it's uphill, so we shall just have to see. Ignatiev, Quella, Stam Schneider, and Barry in breakaway. And I'd suggest, Sean, that the poor conditions have allowed these guys to stay out for a little bit longer than was expected, especially when the whole peloton slowed down to get a good bathing.
Yes, that certainly did, because it was down to a much more advantage, and it grew out to over the 2 minutes. We see the bunch, they just rolled along when they first came into the very wet conditions, and there was a lot of surface water, and again, the bunch is just upping it now, and we have a situation here where the Astans are riding, but they're riding just to keep Vinokurov out of problem. And if you stay up in the top 4 or 5 riders, which is a difficult thing to do, and not the preferred place for the race leader. You'd rather sit back in maybe 20th position where you get a good drafting, but you cannot afford to do that in those conditions, because there's so much surface water. If anything go wrong, and if we have somebody who go down, well, then there will be a stack of riders, because braking in these conditions is so poor. Even if you see the crash happening 20 metres in front of you, you cannot slow down in time, and hopefully that everybody gets through, because if 1 or 2 riders go down, they will take a lot down with them.
Thanks for everybody writing in on Twitter or sending me text or whatever it happens to be. 97 was the black cat that brought Marco Pantani down. Giro in 1997. A lot of people writing in asking the question, Sean, are stages in Grand Tours ever cancelled just because of the weather? It's very seldom. It occasionally happens. They're often shortened or altered, but occasionally they close stages down, or the drop stages, more often than not they're shortened.
Yes, shortened is the word, I think. We've seen it in the big tours, and in the earlier season you see it a lot, like in the Paris-Nice,
Yes,
Torino,
yeah.
Adriatico, because early season the weather conditions, can be very, very poor conditions. In the big tours, we have seen, stages shortened, but I don't think stages that would be totally cancelled. I cannot remember in the most recent years. So yes, I think just the shorten of distance, which we've seen in maybe all the big tours. In the Tour of France, I think in the last 15 or 20 years there were some stages where they certainly were shortened because of the weather conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. They tend to, yes, Paris-Nice is a good example, actually. They're often shortening the stages. They did this year. It was so cold. I think it was about -7 one of the stages when they started. It was just too cold to get going. It was still icy on the road, and so they shortened it by 50 kilometers, I think, and started further on up the road, by which point the temperature had risen, and they could get away. This is really rather nasty, though, Sean. Not particularly nice.
No, not at all. It's not been a good Giro for the riders. When you look at the first days up in Holland, the windy conditions, very, very aggressive racing, and back to Italy, the weather conditions, have been wet all the time, a lot of rain, cold conditions, so not good at all. And the cold conditions, the wet conditions, one day okay, but when you get a number of days, it does tell after 2-3 days in the conditions, and some riders have difficulty supporting that. They do not recover well, and if it continues on for more days, well, then I think it will leave a lot of marks on the riders as we go forward in this race.
Yeah, well, we're already a week into it, and by and large we've had pretty rotten weather all the way through. We've had a couple of days which have been dry. The last day in Holland was dry, although there was a tremendous breeze there. A tailwind most of the time, and it really split things up, so the weather playing a huge amount, playing a huge role in this year's Giro d'Italia. Marcel Zieberg is the tall German rider on the front here in the sleeveless raincoat, leading the peloton through some treacherous ground in Nola here. Really foul weather once again on the Giro d'Italia on stage 9, running into the finish today at Cava di Terreni, down on the Amalfi coast, which should be lovely. Scene of so many Italian movies, but not today. 4 breakaway riders who've been out since kilometer 9. They did get a maximum lead of 3 minutes, and then that was chopped right down and then went out again as the peloton had to ride through some tremendously deep puddles on the road. They are Tom Stamschneider, who's on the far side of your screen in the blue and orange of Rabobank, Gianpaolo Aquila at the back, who is riding for Futon Cervélo, the only Italian in the break. Then there's Mikhail Ignatiev of Katusha and Michael Barry of Team Sky. And this is the group of the Maglia Rosa, the leader's jersey. You can see him about 10 back. It's Alexander Vinokurov of Astana. And at the front, it's HTC Columbia doing most of the work. Once again, just trying to keep it under control and bring back this 4-man breakaway for Andre Greipel to have a go at the sprint. His teammate and adversary, we shall say now, Mark Cavendish, won the first stage of the Tour of California yesterday. Not too difficult a run in once you get in the last 3 or 4 kilometers today, but it's an uphill finish. Just a gradual run around the coast, the Amalfi coast, from about 5 kilometers out. A little flip right underneath. We get underneath a railway bridge through a short tunnel, and then they have to turn right, not quite 90 degrees, but you never know in these sorts of conditions what might happen. They go along the Corso Marzini and then swing left at just under the kilometre to go banner. It's a straight run in, but it's uphill, so quite a different nature of sprint today. This man here won't be that worried about the conditions. He's pretty used to it. Mikhail Ignatiev. Michael Barry going well. Just the water cascading off him, just streaming off him. It's like the worst of the downpours stopped for now. I'm struggling to remember a Giro d'Italia in recent years with such bad weather throughout the whole first week, Sean. I can't think of one offhand. We had the odd day, but we've had 2 days out of the whole. Oh, and one day, if you count the fact that the road to Middelburg, although it was incredibly sunny, had a raging tailwind which caused all sorts of problems and crashes. So in one way or another, I'm struggling to find in my memory, dredge up from my sort of poor feeble brain, anything in the last few years, last 10 years maybe, that have been quite this bad for the whole first week.
Yeah, as bad I don't think we've had, but we've had some poor conditions the first week, as you mentioned in the earlier part of the programme here. The crash we had where all the riders just slided over the line. On that year, that Giro, I think we had quite a number of days which were not good, but I think it tops it this year because it's really been. Out of the number of days we've had racing, there's a big number of them which have been in the wet conditions, and I think it's sure to be the most wet Giro for a long number of years.
Yep, I think so. Maybe wrong. Somebody may be able to drag something out of their memory. 30 kilometres to go for the peloton. They're chasing down a 4-man breakaway. Been out for 9 kilometres. That's certainly not the whole of the peloton. There's the rest. Look at them dropping off the back. I guess just the weather showing that it's harder to be a bike rider than perhaps it seems, even when you're this fit. These 4 men still working very well together. The advantage of 1 minute and 6 seconds. 28.5 kilometres still to go. And none of these men are threat on the overall classification, all going for the stages today. They must have a little bit of a glimmer of hope, though, Sean, because, to be honest, the breakaways have been more successful than you normally have expected, due mainly to the fact that sprinters teams haven't quite got it together in time.
Yes, and I think the advantage is to the breakaway today. When you have a big bunch of riders chasing in good conditions, well then, they're much stronger. But here, it's not as easy to get organised on the front, and as we can see, the Columbia riders, the ones who are pulling along. So with the horrible conditions here, it's definitely down to advantage to the 4 breakaway riders, and they are holding off, but we see the gap is coming down close to a minute at the moment, 27 kilometres. It's just, it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. But it's certainly, played into the advantage of the breakaway, because we see at quite a long ways back it was getting very close, and then they slowed it down with the first bit of the very bad conditions, and it's going on, but causing a lot of problems back in the bunch. We can see the bunch is split there totally, and there's a lot of riders in here, I think, not comfortable at all with these conditions, and if they haven't really a lot to go for, if they're not going to get anything out of the general classement, get anything from the stage, they're going to say, well, why take the risk here? Because I think they're feeling that there could be, quite a big spill if somebody go down on one of those corners. Well, then there's going to be a stack of riders going with them, and some riders have to be thinking about that, and that's the reason we see the split there. There's quite a very big group of riders off the rear of the main bunch here.
We've got a lot of riders and viewers watching in Australia and in the Far East, thanks to Eurosport World's output. And Chris Ingle is one of them, writing in or contacting through Twitter, saying, have there ever been 2 Aussies in leaders' jerseys at the same time in the Giro d'Italia? Can't think of one at all, and just had a quick skim back through the records. I don't think that we've ever had 2 Australians at the same time in jerseys. Now, I think possibly that Cadel Evans may well have qualified for the Best Young Riders jersey when he was in the pink jersey before. And he might have done. He might have been a little bit too old, but even if he had have done, they didn't have a Young Riders jersey at that point. They brought it back again just a few years ago. So I can't think of any. It would have had to have been Climbers jersey or Points jersey, and I can't think of one. At the moment we've got 3 jerseys on the shoulders of Australians, remember. Cadel Evans in the Points leaders jersey, and Matthew Lloyd in the Mountains classification jersey, and Richie Porte in the Best Young Riders jersey, which is quite extraordinary, really. Even if there were 2 jerseys of the same nation, or Australia, before, there certainly wouldn't have been 3. So it's been a terrific Giro d'Italia so far for the Australians. The pace is clearly up. On the right-hand side, it's HTC Columbia who've done the work in shutting down this gap. It was 1 minute and 5 seconds. It's now down to 40 seconds. And the Commissaire's car coming past the 4-man breakaway. They'll know very shortly that that gap is being closed once again. They're trying hard. They never, I guess in these conditions, Sean, you never know. There may be another horrible section of weather coming up, horrible road conditions, lots of standing water, and they may again get a little bit of an advantage as the peloton is forced to slow down to avoid accidents.
Yes, although I doubt if they will slow down now. Columbia have, they've got their riders on the front, and they're going to get their sprinters up there as we get to the 25 kilometers to go. Their sprinter Greipel, he's going to be really close to the front of the bunch, probably just sitting in 5th or 6th position, and they will just keep on riding then, and they're not going to be concerned about anybody else. They're just thinking of getting Greipel into a good position, getting there for the sprint, getting this breakaway pull back, and having a go for the stage victory today. So and that's the concern. The other riders, they know that they are going to continue on, they're going to keep on pushing it, and that's where the danger points come, and there's always the risk that we could see a number of riders having problems getting around some of the corners. And luckily it is a very good run at the moment. It's quite straight, the roads, there are not too many corners, not too many villages, and that is a good thing, because with the conditions we're getting, if we had a lot of up and down and going through a lot of villages, well, then it would be treacherous.
24 kilometres to go, and HTC Columbia really got the bit between the teeth, really pushing on now. The whole team being dedicated to giving everything for André Greipel. The riders doing all the work on the front at the moment are Vincenzo Nibali, Marcel Zieberg, and Michael Albassini. And Greipel will be really hoping for something. They've missed out on sprint victories so far. Mind you, so have the other big sprint team, quotes big sprint team, Lampre, who brought Alessandro Patacchi here. But HTC Columbia are the guys with the greatest experience at lead-outs. They have the best lead-out train so far. Crikey, they're really pushing it along now, Sean. They're not hanging about. Michael Albassini is putting the hammer down at the front. Ignatiev is trying to go away with Michael Barry here. Stam Schneider trying to get back on, and it's Gianpaolo Coelho who's really suffering to get on the back. Ignatiev does a pull, looks over to see who's coming along, see if they can still work together. They still have to work together, still a bit too far out.
Yes, so they have to, everybody has to try and contribute here, because if one sits on the rear, well, then it's really going to, upset the organisation here, as you have to share here. Even if you're suffering a bit, if you try and sit on, well, then I think that's you're going to kill the break in that way, any chance they have going on to the finish. And they are pushing it on here. I think we're beginning to see now that some of the riders up here in these 4 breakaway are very powerful and can really ride strong at the front, as they're holding on there at 48 seconds. I think it was around 46 maybe just some time ago. So it'll be interesting to see now if they can really put up a battle as we've a flat forward.
Is that Sastre? No. Yes.
No, a bit too big for Sastre.
Oh, it's a short. Anyway, it's Cervélo TestTeam once again who are having some trouble today. You're right about the strength of the guys in the front though. Michael Barry is super strong when he wants to go, and of course the HTC Columbia guys will know all about that. Could this possibly be the day? Yeah, it is. Could this possibly be the day for Mikhail Ignatiev, though? It is Sastre.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and a replacement rear wheel that doesn't normally correspond to the deep dish zips that he's got on. Normally, oh, Sastre, what a dreadful Giro d'Italia he's having. It's just not going right for him at all, Sean, is it?
No, not at all. And you know, in the general classement, he's a long ways off. I think. I reckon he might be just thinking that, well, it's really, you know, over for him to do anything in the general. And but you know, again, it's not a good time to have a flat here as we're really going, you know, close to giving it 100%, and a lot of splits occurring, and that is the problem. You know, if you have a flat and there's groups dropping off the rear of the bunch, number of riders, well, then you have to make your way back to that group and then close that gap up to the front group of the big favourites once again, and that's always different and difficult. And Sastre, you know, it's not going right from it all this race.
No, it's dreadful. Once again, he's digging in to get back up there, but got to say, in the last 2 or 3 days, he's been looking as though he's not particularly happy with this Giro. I wonder if he'll get to the end. He's not a man who usually quits a race. I can't think of the last one he quit. Was out of injury. Ignatiev, head down, legs churning away like a turbine, this young man. He's a really good pursuiter, and he's won an Olympic scratch title. He's a very good racer. You can see the peloton in the far, far distance now, but with 20 kilometers to go, Mikhail Ignatiev would dearly like to stay away finally once in one of these long, long breakaways. I'm sure it'll happen for him one day. Oh, crash, is it? Or have they just stopped? No, I thought they'd all crash for a minute because it all looked like they were bunched up. Here is Sastre being paced back to the front now. Sliding in and out from the back of the cars, getting a bit of a tow, and then you can't, of course, stay there all the time. So you take a little bit of a slipstream, then zip out to the next one and so on, and work your way back up through the cars. Berg giving it full gas. We're getting really used to this horrible weather. I think it's Hansen in second spot. Muscular frame, arms straight down on the bars, totally different riding position to some of the other guys. Really long, straight-armed ride. Let's take a break. We're under 20 kilometers to go. 4 men with 50 seconds ahead. Welcome back, and the peloton filing through the town. Here on the run into the finish, we're 17.4 kilometers from the end of today's stage. We're in the province of Salerno now, and running through the town of Sarno. And we were just saying to Sean in the breakaway, it's he who dares wins today. And Mikhail Ignatiev was really pushing on, but Sean, you were commenting that Michael Barry is really ragging it out on the corners and beginning to take some real risks.
Yes, we can see that he is, you know, calling very strongly, and some of the other riders, I think it was Cervélo who was having, you know, problems just staying in the wheel, staying a little bit off, and you know, that is, it's always the danger. You have to try and follow. You have to, you know, keep pretty close, and if a rider is pushing it a bit too much, well, then he can, you know, take everybody with him. And the advantage here is with 4 riders out front, it's a great position to be in. Where back in the bunch, it's much more nervous times, and you know, everybody is really, I think, nervous here. And for a sprinter here like Greipel, he has to really stay closer to the front. I think you have to, you know, take that risk. Not the best place to be, as we can see another split here now coming up, and you know, the bunch is really blowing to pieces. But if you stay a bit too far off, you are in the shelter, you get better drafting. But if a number of riders go down, you can get, you know, caught in that. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. Do you keep close to your teammates? And with 3 from Colombia here riding, do you move up there? You should be really up where being a cut-off phase, and I cannot see Greipel for the moment.
Surely he's going to be there, isn't he? Or is it Goss who's up there? because there's 1, 2, 3 HTC Columbia riders driving along on the front. There's a big split, or big-ish split, back to the main bunch of the peloton. The Vinokurov group is what 40 seconds down on Michael Barry's group now. And behind that, the other news is, of course, that Carlos Sastre now 150 down, something like that.
I think 136 was
136.
the last. Yes, and he's in a group there which had just went off the back of that main group, and that's the problem with the splits. You know, you make a good ride back through the cars, but then you arrive in a group that is not actually the leading group on the road. There's a split of, you know, a minute and a half, and that's Sastre's situation he's in at the moment.
Not easy, is it, this, as they twist and turn through this sort of serpentine road through the middle of Cerno. It's going to be like this pretty much all the way down towards the finish now, on and off. And it's Enrico Gasparotto pushing things along now for Astana. Well, Alexander Vinokurov's team wanting to put more daylight between themselves and other riders. Is Cadel Evans up here? This is the question.
I do not think so.
I don't think so, no.
And that's the situation. Vinokurov was riding, you know, perfect over the last 20 kilometres. He's up there, you know, using his team, 2 teammates in front of him in about 6th or 7th position, allowing the Columbia riders to do the work on the front. And now with the split here, they seem to want to take it up. So it tells me there is surely some of the general classement. It looks like Evans is not here.
Looks like, is that Basso? Basso is behind, and that must be Nibali with him. So Basso and Nibali both in this group. Pozzato is in this group. No, Evans is not in that front group. Evans has been dropped from that little front group, and he'll have to fight to get back up. Garzelli also not in that group, and it's the Acqua Sapone team who are trying to shut down the gap at the moment. Oh, I'll have to watch those motorcycles. Now, they have been tending to get a little bit close in the Giro d'Italia at times, and that just aids anybody trying to get away. There's Stefano Garzelli pushing another man back into the line. Under the 15 to go for the group here. This has become interesting all of a sudden, with HTC Columbia causing the fracture in this group. And Astana driving it on. 37 seconds from Mikhail Ignatiev, Michael Barry, Tom Stamschneider and Gianpaolo Quella. Back to Vinokurov's group, including, we think, Basso and Nibali. And then back to this group here, which we can see Stefano Garzelli, but I still can't see the world champion, or the red jersey, should I say. Well, that's what we're looking for. It's the red jersey of Cadel Evans that we're looking for. Is that him there in second spot? Yes, it is. Cadel Evans is in this group, just behind, on the road, behind Vinokurov's group. They seem to be clawing their way back just a little bit, Sean.
Yes, they seem to be just making ground very slowly, and the gap is not great at the moment, so they should be able to get back in there. But you know, it is a danger one for the general classman. Garzelli also, Scarponi, he's another one, and I think Vinokurov would like to, you know, to take a bit more time from the likes of Scarponi, Garzelli, and of course Evans. And we could see the team did a you know, really strong pull there. One of the Astana guys actually just lost contact with the front group because he pulled so strong, and then he just went out the rear of this leading group.
On the front of that second group now, it looked to me as though Rabobank was starting to pull on the front. Somebody from Rabobank was starting to pull on the front. We didn't get a good shot of him. Mikhail Ignatiev in your left-hand box, with Gianpaolo Quella coming through. And it's Evans now who's taking up the charge, Sean, by the look of it. On the front of this group, he wants to cut down this deficit. He moves over to let a couple more riders come through and try and shut down the gap. But he's definitely been kicking from the front. We've seen this before in Holland, and it looks to me as though they're going to come back together, but that was another heart-stopping moment for the world champion and second in the overall classification. The cracks are beginning to appear. If he has a little bit of fatigue at all, Sean, the Astana team seem to be stronger. There's no match between Astana and BMC in terms of team strength.
no match at all really between the teams. But you know, the situation is for Evans, you cannot afford, you know, lose sight of the other general classmen men and Vinokurov certainly. And if you're a little bit far off and somebody just leaves the gap open as you go through the towns and the cornering, someone's a little bit nervous, because normally Evans is quite good. We see him 2 days ago where he was, you know, riding fabulously on that gravel section. So, but if you are a little bit too far off and somebody just leaves the gap, they're not confident, well then it opens. And you know, the way they're going out front, they're giving it 100%. Colombia riding really strong, and we see the Astana riders really digging in.
Oh, that's Basso. I thought Basso was in that front group, so it can't be Basso in the front group, and it looks like Agnoli is just ahead of him. So he has an ally in here. So the riders who've made it from Liquigas into the front group, probably Kieselowski and Nibali. Difficult to tell with Nibali, because I think he had a jersey on. That looks like Scarponi just being pulled up towards the front now. So Scarponi in this second group as well. The Androni guys getting on the front to get a little bit extra to try and shut that gap down. Scarponi second in line here. Just behind him, I think, goes Cadel Evans in that second group we're talking about. Still, there are 4 men up ahead. They are doing a grand job, these 4. Ignatiev, Quella, Stamschneider and Michael Barry. This is the chasing group, the second of the group, should I say, on the road. Not the group containing the Mane Rosa of Alexander Vinokurov, but it's Scarponi who makes the gap, bridges the gap. Ooh, that was a bit of a dodgy moment. Had to work hard to get that.
And good for Evans that he had Scarponi. Basso was there, the Liquigas rider also pushed it on. And it's a good situation, as we can see. It's
Ignatiev pushing on. Look, he's dropped them. He's dropped the rest of them. That's something you don't see often from Mikhail Ignatiev, is actual out the saddle acceleration. Michael Barry is the rider behind, trying to keep in touch with this little Russian, Mikhail Ignatiev, one of my favorite riders in the peloton, I have to say. Quick question, Sean, is do you think that Mikhail Ignatiev is actually going to pull it off this time?
No, not a chance, because we're coming to a situation where it's kicking uphill here, and that's you know, always that more difficult for a rider who's been out in the break all day. But we've seen Ignatiev, when he's in a break and they're getting pulled in, he always goes in the attack, and he just tries to get the last number of kilometers, the last number of seconds on screen, I suppose. But you know, you cannot see him. We're still with 10 kilometers to go, and the gap 15 seconds there, and the terrain is not playing into, you know, playing for Ignatiev at all, because he's not a rider that likes the little bit of uphill at all. If it was pan flat, it would still be an impossible task for him to go on and hold on.
Had to ask the question. Oh dear. He's made himself a bit of a minor star, though, isn't he, by doing this? Everybody knows him for this sort of long attack. One day he'll pull it off, I'm sure of it. He's the Jackie Durand of his day. Jackie Durand, our colleague at French Eurosport, commentating alongside us for the Giro d'Italia, along with Patrick Chassé. Famous for that ultra-long breakaway with Tommy Vegbul in the Tour of Flanders. Well, here we are. This is no lack of no lack of commitment by Ignatiev. If nothing else. Oh, and they're around the same corner now. The road's dry here. It makes it all the more hard for him to stay away. Pozzato looking a little bit better today. He's up towards the front and not looking in too bad a shape, considering he's had a poor time. Tyler Farrer's up there as well, have you noticed? 113, just going through the shot. So they managed to stay through all that rubbish weather keep themselves up towards the finish. Andre Greipel's team HTC Columbia, doing most of the work. I wonder if we'll see any Garmin riders coming to add their strength to the front here, if they have anything left. Michael Barry, great riding. Look at this. He's made it back to the rear wheel of Mikhail Ignatiev. Just no panic, just keep riding. 7.9 kilometers to go. And it's very in and out here, Sean. They have to work together if they can. They've got an advantage of 15 seconds.
Yes, and this will give you know, a little bit of a better chance for them to stay out there with Barry coming up here to join Ignatiev, and the gap has maybe pulled out a bit there, as we can see, and the Columbia riders just gone off the front of the bunch for the moment. We see the Astana ones who are controlling, and they are not going to really push it and take any risk as we go through this town.
Whoops.
Some riders having problems, which is not a surprise at all, because it's getting pretty technical here.
Yeah, it certainly is. Hitting the old straw bales. A little bit of an overcooking on the corner there. Woo! Just, well, they didn't have to go anywhere. Just slightly overcooking the corner. Michael Barry and Mikhail Ignatiev then working together at the front here. Ignatiev knew he was coming up. Just eased off the pedals a little bit, waved the hand to say, come on, let's work together. And these two boys will have to chase back on at the moment. Oop, almost getting clobbered by the Mavic neutral service car as well. 7 to go. Ignatiev really gritting his teeth here. He must be thinking, how long is it going to be? And doing the lion's share of the work. Barry just sitting behind him. Ignatiev could allow him to do that for a little bit, Sean, just to recover, because he's had to make that bridge across, but he's not going to want him to stay there forever.
No, he's not. He needs him to work, but I think Barry is probably, you know, not happy with Ignatiev attacking at that point, because, you know, the advantage was so small. You would expect them to try and keep it together. If there's a rider who is really suffering, he cannot contribute at all, and he's just sitting in the rear, well, then there's no point in, you know, carrying him along. But Barry, you know, was as strong as Ignatiev and doing the same amount of work, and you try and, you know, keep the riders working, the strong ones, keep them with you. And Ignatiev, you know, sometimes we see him like that. He goes in the attack when it's better maybe to keep the team together for a bit further and get closer to the finish. And as we can see, still, you know, outside 6 kilometers. When it straightens up the road to get longer straights, they will come back very quickly. I think the advantage was we went through the town there a bit technical, and the bunch maybe not prepared to take as much risk as Ignatiev and Barry.
Andre Greipel being brought back up to the front at the moment by Francesco Rabon, slotting in. Tyler Farrer, look out for 113. He's on his right-hand shoulder, Andre Greipel's right-hand shoulder. And the HTC boys will be hoping that Garmin Transitions perhaps put a little bit of effort in and try and bring people up. We've not seen so far Brown or Wayland getting up towards the front. The other two men who've been fairly consistent in the sprinting so far. But Pipo Pozzato is up there, though. Pozzato, well, is he out to try and get Italy's first stage win in this year's Giro d'Italia? It's been a barren period for them already. Still the rest of the breakaway not being hauled back. This is Brandl going off the front. Matthias Brandl of Austria. These are our two remnants of the breakaway. They're still out ahead with Mikhail Ignatiev, who was the strongman who jumped away from his 3 other breakaway companions, and Michael Barry just dug in to get up to that rear wheel. 5.2 kilometers to go. Ignatiev fixed the arm for Barry to come through, dutifully does. And this is Brandl. So there's not much left, and it looks to me as though the these two boys are beginning to pedal squares a little bit. And there we are. As Sean suggested, or told me, in uncertain terms, not in a million years is this going to happen. Under the 5 kilometer to go banner, and the two riders from the escape stop pedaling. Mikhail Ignatiev gets to within a whisker once again of a breakaway win. And Michael Barry is going to slot back into the front of this as he can to help his own men, Christopher Sutton or Greg Henderson. The big jersey of Alexander Vinokurov, the Maya Rosa, safely through the dreadful weather today. And almost causing a split which distanced a number of his main rivals. Astana have had a good track record doing that in the last few years. Look at the Tour de France a few years ago, and that's exactly what they wanted. It 2 years ago? 3 years ago now, where that's exactly what they did. Forced the pace in a crosswind and split the peloton to pieces. HTC Columbia take it up again with Michael Albassini. Once again doing his turn on the front. He's done a lot of work so far, and they are pushing it along for Andre Greipel. But look out for Tyler Farah, who's still lurking there or thereabouts. This is Carlos Sastre. Sastre having a dreadful Giro d'Italia so far. Really has been a foul time for him. Albassini really winding this up as they get towards the top. Is it too much, though? This is the question we have to ask. Still 3.6 kilometers to go, Sean.
Yes, and they have done a big amount of work here from the Columbia team, and you know, Greipel, he needs somebody, you know, to really take him through all the way to the sprint, and that's going to be difficult now with the amount of work they've put in here. As we see Rabon there just really starting to suffer. Haydo I see as well from the Saxo, he's up there at the moment, very close to Farrar, so the sprint is starting to appear. And you know, the Garmin guys, they haven't really contributed at all, and there's not many of them about there, so it looks like it is getting, you know, very scrappy, and I don't think we might see a team really able to, you know, get on the front with 3 or 4 riders and keep the pace real high in the final 2-3 kilometers.
Ivan Basso up towards the front, trying to keep out of trouble, having got himself into some a little bit earlier, with Astana splitting the peloton, as did Cadel Evans. It's Sastre forcing the pace along here. He's got Iñigo Cuesta in his wheel. Sastra's the one doing all his own chasing. And away goes Rabon, I think. That would be the end of him at 3 kilometers to go. The pace still reasonably high. And oh, look, no more HTC Columbia riders there to do the job, just as you suggested, Sean. Is the pace a little bit too high?
It looks like it could be quite a crappy sprint, or a sloppy sprint, as they say in cycling terms, because when you have not a team, that's the danger time as well. It's not pulled out enough, and they, you know, get very grouped together. And sometimes when we see the crashes, it's at the time now when they cannot keep the pace really fast, really, you know, going in the final 2 kilometers.
There's a couple of men from Quickstep up there. Maybe Walter Wayland will get more of a lead out than he was normally being expecting as they come through. Yep, 2 kilometers to go. Sorry about the picture breakup. David Miller right up the front here now. 1:11 for 1:13, which is Tyler Farah, who's clearly been the fastest man so far. 1:15 going around the outside is Reda, and Marco Cervélo still up there as well. There's Walter Wayland, number 159 for Quickstep, just lurking in there. He's got Andre Greipel right next to him on his shoulder. Greipel has a quick look across to see how things are going. Linus Gerdemann doing his mad Linus bit again. I don't know what he does, but anyway, he does it for some bizarre reason. Now pushing on is Branislav Samalo. How disciplined was Sky there. They've just suddenly got to the front. Oh, that's hard work for Ted King, the American. He's a fantastic time trialist, and he's trying to bring Carlos Sastre back from the brink, so to speak. There's Wayland with Evans right behind him. Evans had a bit of a scare earlier today. Just forcing his way through now for the Colnago squad. Was Belletti, I think. Well, we come under the last kilometre to go, Banner. Remember, we've still got a little bit of a flick to go. They've done that right-hand turn. That's not so bad. Steve Cummings sits on the front, driving the pace along for Team Sky. And they'll be looking out for Chris Sutton or Greg Henderson. Behind, yeah, here's where the, as Sean is indicating to me, here's where the slope is. They're under the 1 kilometre to go banner. It's Cummings on the front, trying to set this one up. Vinokurov looking pretty calm and collected where he is. Pozzato, I think, is just lurking there a little bit and might well go. Is that Lotto? It's one of the riders from the Androni squad who's gone off the front.
Bertogliati.
But, yeah, Rubens Bertogliati. Surely.
Same as he did in the Tour de France.
Yes, exactly what he did in the Tour de France in almost identical situations. Rubens Bertogliati's trying to catch them out and get the glory today for Androni. I don't think it's going to happen because Tyler Farrer's team are hunting him down. Bertogliati is within reach. There he is on the left-hand side of your screen. Is that Evans on the far left-hand side for the points? Oh, what a ride by Cadel Evans. Evans going for it super strong with Vinokurov behind him. They've still got a way to go, and Tyler Farrer has slipped into the slipstream of Vinokurov, waiting to go. Evans is still driving for the line. He wants the points, if nothing else. Vinokurov is going for the sprint on the far right-hand side. It's Greipel. Andre Greipel hits the front. And Greipel, the German, takes a victory. At least I think it was Greipel. My apologies if it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Well, I've made the absolute carnal sin, haven't I, ever? Assuming it was, and it was Matt Goss who has taken the victory. Well, all eyes were on Evans on the left-hand side of the road, and then Vinokurov went for it in the middle. Well, what an open sprint, Sean. In the end, Goss takes the win.
Yes, and what a sprint by Evans again. You know, it tells us that it was a little bit uphill, but he really, went for it and took it up much too early. We could see, Gus, he really put in a powerful sprint in that final 20 metres. He was really, really strong. Farah was there in a very good position in the wheel of Vinokurov, and he started his sprint, I think, at a good time, at the right time, but just did not have the legs.
Yep. Well, apologies for missing Goss there, but looking all over the road. It was Matt Goss who took the win. A terrific win for another Australian success. Well, what a Giro d'Italia it's turning out to be for the Australians.
Yes, what a performance they're having when you look at, the way they're riding. 2 stages today makes the third one, and then 3 jersey classements in this race.
Incredible. 3 victories, yes indeed, in stages. Matt Lloyd, Cadel Evans, and now Matthew Goss takes a win, and they have 3 jerseys: best young rider, points jersey, and mountains classification jersey. What a ride this man has had to do as well. Carlos Sastre once again being forced to work to keep himself back in the hunt, and already 1 minute and 45, 6, 7, 1 minute and 49 seconds back on the favourites. Another really hard day for Carlos Sastre. Here's Matt Goss. Well, no sound on this, but you can almost guess what he's going to be saying, can't you? Fantastic day, terribly hard. Weather was bad, team was great, worked really hard, but that's a wonderful win for Goss, showing that he's got strength as well as speed. Because not an easy finish uphill, although as you can see, look, you can see the slope on it here. Quite a significant slope, actually, when you're sprinting flat out, Sean, after all these 187 kilometres or so.
Yes, and after the weather they've been in the the rain all day there, it makes it that much more difficult. If you come in good conditions with this style of finish, then you can do it well. And I think some of the sprinters suffering here, and Farah was the one who was in a perfect position, but just did not have the legs in the end.
Rubens Bertogliati giving it a go, and trying to do his the same trick as he did in the Tour de France. Pozzato second, Farah third, Foster fourth, Canuti fifth in the end. Look at the way it's split all over the sides of the road, though, with Vinokurov looking over his shoulder on the right-hand side. Farah, first of all, electing to go to the left with Pozzato on his wheel, and then Goss. And on the right-hand side, as they catch Rubens Bertogliati, look at the speed which Cadel Evans is going here. Vinokurov going with him. Tyler Farah slips into the wheel of Alexander Vinokurov. Very clever, actually. Got into perfect position. She's just waiting, isn't he? Now he goes for it, but Pozzato coming around the outside. But Goss, much quicker than both of them. Much quicker.
Yes, by far the fastest, the strongest maybe. I think we could see Farah, as I said, you know, he was in a perfect position but just hadn't got it. And Pozzato, of course, in the sprint, you know, not a real sprinter, but still a little bit of an uphill. You know, he just shows that he can do that. It's a better style of finish for him than a deadpan flat one.
Absolutely. Good finish by Canuti as well, of the Colnago squad. On the left-hand side, you can see tongue hanging out. Farah going for it. Goss gets it. Nibali right up there. The right-hand side, you can see, keeping out of harm's way. Doing a great ride. Terrific attack by Evans. Goss, the clear margin over Pozzato. Forster throwing his bike at the line as well. Another good ride by Forster as well. Big, strong sprinter. He's clearly in quite good form. It's been very open as far as sprinting goes, this Giro d'Italia, Sean.
Yes, it is open, and I think you know, we've seen there today again the teams not really able to just put the finishing touches, preparing the sprint. Although for Colombia, a great situation today. They did a huge amount of work. They put all the work into it and got the victory, and they deserve it very much so. But no team able to take it up in the last 2 or 3 kilometres and really just put 3 or 4 men on the front and make that train.
The win goes to Matt Goss today, but this is the way it looks for the overall classification. Vinokurov from Evans from Nibali. 1 minute and 8 seconds. Still dangling out there are Dario Cataldo of Quick Step, Charlie Vigelius of the Omega Pharma Lotto team, and Hubert Dupont of the AG2 Le Mondial team. There's Pozzato. Super experienced domestique and lead-out man for the Quick Step outfit, and he's the sort of man who can play a key role in the Giro d'Italia for a man like Walter Wayland, who is not finding his feet so much, but has clearly got some good form, and having a man like Pozzato around is very important.
Yes, and the Quick Step are the team who we see a number of them in the final 2 kilometres yesterday. There was quite a few of them appeared, and you know, Pozzato has got the experience. I think maybe a little bit maybe back off when it really gets heated up and there's a lot of movement, a lot of pushing. I don't know if Pozzato is able to do it anymore, because you know, he's pushing on, getting to the end of his career, and that does happen, and I feel that is the case. But we did see Walter Wayland yesterday when he came across the line. He was shaking his head, and that tells me that he didn't do the sprint, or he wasn't in the right position that he would have liked to be. And of course, you know, Wayland's, if he get his position right, if he get a run at the right time, he's a very good one in a little uphill sprint. So it looks like that he was disappointed yesterday with something, but exactly what that was, maybe that he just sometimes when you come over the line, you make a little mistake at maybe 200, 300 meters before at the finish, and then you know, you regret that as you finish maybe, you know, 5th or 6th of the stage.
It's interesting that Matteo Pozzato has been sent here. I mean, obviously he's an Italian, rather than going to the Tour of California, because he usually has to work very hard for Tom Bonan. Bonan, of course, in California and not here. That is the profile of Ivan Basso. The young man you were watching eating just now for Caisse was Rigoberto Urán. This man, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia when he was with CSC. It's been a long old straight road so far today, Sean. It's this is more Vuelta than Giro.
Yes, it is, and you know, it's a hard, long road when you're out there with 3 riders in front. This is, you know, really difficult for the breakaway, and but it's a situation of, you know, how long they're going to let him hang out there, you know, for the moment, as we see 110, and it's just coming down very gradually, and they're, you know, biding time really in the main bunch here. Leave them hang there as long as possible, and try and just keep the situation calm. And you know, the teams that are controlling it, that's what they want to do until they get into that final, hopefully 25 kilometres. And it looks like it's going to be difficult to get to that now, because it's dropping down a bit too quickly.
50 kilometres for our lead 3 riders. Nice bit of art once again. It always happens when there's a long, flat bit of road that they've got nothing else to film. Moto cameras start doing a bit of art. And why not, after all? Now, we've got plenty of time now for questions and comments. We'll take this one from Russell Foster. Now, actually, you're not the only person to have asked this, Russell. There's about, I think I've counted about 7 or 8 people have asked the same question. There's a lot of people watching cycling. They're either new cyclists or watching this for the first time. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying our coverage here on Eurosport. I hope we've got the right mix of information and a bit of humour as well, hopefully. Right, this is one that we've had quite a bit. Excuse me, I'm just about to cough. There we go, right. Why do you never see whole teams break away in long stages, Sean?
Well, it's just not allowed. You know, there's the other teams, if they see that there's a team going to make a move, it's covered pretty quickly when you see a full team of 9 riders appearing at the front. And if a team goes in the start with their 9 riders and they do get an advantage, it's just not possible, because there's 5 or 6 other teams who want to chase, and they will put 3 or 4 riders, 5 riders of the team in the front, and the numbers just totally outweigh then. And in the final, often we see a team appearing in the front. If you get wind conditions and it's a side wind, well, then that's the danger time, where a team can go 20-30 kilometers from the finish and really cause problems, and that we have seen in races many times.
Yeah.
But the other teams are aware as well. They all know the direction of the race. They're all being informed by the earpiece, by the radio from the director sportif, and he's always checking the wind condition first of all, the way the direction the race is going, if they're going to be side winds, and they're all very experienced, so they all know exactly what's coming up. And if a team is appearing on the front with all the riders, well, then immediately all the other teams start to see that, and they start to react immediately.
Yeah, they do. If you've been following Eurosport's cycling coverage over the last 2 or 3 years, you may remember last year in the Tour of Qatar, prime example of what Sean was just saying, when the Cervélo test team put the hammer down on stage 1 and right at the very end, and I think nearly all of them broke away. In fact, Roger Hammond won the stage that day. It was at, well, I say stage 1, not the prologue obviously, but the first road stage. But the whole team pretty much broke away from the rest of the peloton. They only had a couple of riders with them, so it can happen towards certain points, but certainly if they tried to break away en masse, everybody would just hunt them down. Here's an interesting one as well from Magpie, Jeff and Magpie, saying how many director sportives are on the Giro d'Italia who are former riders? Well, pretty much most of them are former riders. Let's have a look. I know that Eric Decker is the director sportif for Rabobank. Who has it? Bruno Kingliato is the director sportif at Aqua Sapone. Arturas Kasputis, the Latvian, is a former rider, of course, riding is the director sportif for AG2R Le Mondial. Just having a look at Neil Stevens is the director sportif at Caisse. David Bramati, who hasn't been that long retired, to be honest, is the Quick-Step director. Guido Bontempi for Lampre. Matt White at Garmin Transitions, you've seen him in the car a couple of times already. Just trying to think about Sean Yates, we've already mentioned today. He's 50 today. Piva of Columbia HTC. Parsani of Katusha. Torsten Schmidt is the director sportive in charge of Team Saxo Bank. Just trying to think if there's any of the others that are ex-riders. Most of them probably ridden at some point. It's true that there aren't many director sportive, Sean, are there, that haven't ridden at some level, some high level. Sometimes amateurs, sometimes professional.
Yes, a lot of them would be professional. And when you look at the teams and the director sportives that you mentioned, there is, quite a few there. If you look at AG2 Le Mondial, Kasputis, of course, but then I think Laurent Biondi is there. We see him talking to the man in the breakaway, Dupont, so he was also professional for quite a number of years. With Rabobank, I'm not sure, I think Nico Verhoeven is also there with the Rabobank team, and of course, all the riders there on the Rabobank are past professionals, and very, very good ones. So you have a huge amount of riders that were in the professionals, and it would be probably 90% that rode professional would be director sportives in the teams at the moment.
Yeah, it's Madui of Cervélo TestTeam, but I know Alex Sanz Vega is also out there as well, as we spoke to him the other day.
Cofidis Quilfen, he was professional many years ago with Bernardino, so you know, some of them go back a long time. Other ones are more recent. When you look at the Quick Step, for example, you know, they have a very recent professional in their peloton, and it's you know, it's a great mixture of, you know, over many years of professional racing that you have as director sportives.
Yep, it's the most famous non-rider, I guess, in recent years to have been director sportif was Manolo Sainz, who was never a rider, and but just happened to be a very good manager and understood tactics. He also understood a little bit more about the cycling game at the time than perhaps he should have, being involved in that very heavily with the man who sparked off the Operation Porto investigation with his payments of cash to Manuel Fuentes, the doctor involved in the Porto investigation. But that was a different, hopefully a different time, when practices like that were more than common all the time. Are we seeing our riders running over the top and underneath at the same time here? Looks like it. But yeah, on that point particularly about riders and ex-riders, Manolo Sainz was never a rider at all. Well, he might have been when he was a schoolboy or something, but he certainly wasn't ever a high-level amateur or professional rider. That's very unusual for director sportives. Although one particular British team in the Premier calendar at the moment have a professional photographer as a director sportif. So there we go. 45 kilometres to go for our three men. Been out there pretty much all of the day. It's a long stage today, Sean, to be left to dangle out there, isn't it?
Yes, it's a long day, and with three riders out front, it's you know, a very small group. Two little riders out front is going to make it so difficult ever to succeed. And when the teams want to, you know, control the situation, and you know, it's going that way. Yesterday we see it again today. Very early on, you could see that was going to be controlled, and you're in a situation. What do? Do you continue, or do you just sit it back and allow the bunch to catch up? The three here decided to go on. They're going to get, you know, quite a lot of airtime, get a lot of exposure for their sponsors, but it's going to be, you know, a very tiring day for them, and they'll be tired men at the end of this one. And looking at the finish today, tomorrow the stage is a bit further on. I think they have 120 kilometres of a transfer this evening, so it's going to be a long day for the riders.
Yeah, it's they're going to be pretty tired by the end of it, these guys. There's no doubt about that. The start tomorrow is at Richie, and we finish at L'Aquila, some 260 kilometres further north, and it's by far from a flat day tomorrow. I'm surprised that Charlie Vigelius has been out in the break today, Sean, when perhaps the terrain might have suited him a bit more tomorrow.
Yes, that's a surprising one, because Vigelius, if it's a, you know, a mountain stage, a medium mountain stage, there he can do very well, and surprised to see him on a flat stage when the race is being controlled by the sprinters. On a medium mountain day, well, it's a much better possibility of succeeding.
Welcome back. Look at this. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Oh! And down goes a rider from Cervélo TestTeam, the front wheel tucking up underneath him. It was Ignatiev Konovalovas in the centre, and he picked himself up off the ground. One of the Omega Pharma riders going down, but the most badly hurt rider, it appears, is one of the riders from Futon Cervélo. We haven't managed to catch who it is yet. On the left-hand side of the road, there is Konovalovas getting back onto his bike, checking that front wheel. It just tucked up underneath him for some reason. Must have touched something, because he certainly wasn't cranked over that much. And look who just about missed it. Cadel Evans getting around there. The rider from foot on Cervélo is Pedersen, Dane. Wallop straight into the barriers. Pedersen complaining bitterly to Ignatiev Konovalovas, but even so, nothing much Konovalovas could do about that. Whatever he did, he went straight down. There was no stopping that one. Back with live pictures then at 42.3 kilometres. Martin Pedersen of the Futon Cervélo squad being held up more than anybody else. But did you see how close Cadel Evans was there, Sean? He managed to pick his way around that just about.
Yes, he picked his way through, and he was really close. And it seemed like that they just slided out, and must have been maybe a little bit of oil or something there, because it just slided off, and there was 10 rides that went down real quickly.
50 seconds now is the gap. Thanks to Anthony Tan, journalist of note from Australia. Glad you're watching in Australia. Just to remind you, it was David Mackenzie who won stage 7 in the 2000 Giro d'Italia for Linda McCartney. And I've commentated with him actually a couple of times. Last time being the Tour of Langkawi a number of years ago, which was a bit of a crazy Tour of Langkawi that one was. I shall never forget that. Probably had more work and had more play in that 10 days than I think I've ever had in any job. And Mackenzie was absolutely mighty. It was the first time he'd done real commentary, and he was just brilliant. Well, they're beginning to feel the effort of staying out there for most of the day today. Cataldo looking the smoothest, perhaps, of the three, but Dupont and Vegelius trying to stay out for as long as possible, but they've only got a 50-second gap with 41 kilometres to go. It is amazing that they just carry on out there all the time. You never know what's going to happen until it happens. They're just going to carry on rolling along, and gets extra airtime, extra exposure, but we're inside the last, or pretty much inside the last 40 kilometres. With a gap of 1 minute, just gone out about 10 seconds as they continue to plough along. There's Maciej Bodnar, all plastered up. It's been a lot slower than yesterday. 37.6 kilometres an hour has been the average speed of the race today. So I think just quite happy to take advantage of the better weather and just sit in there and wait for the sprint to come towards the end of the day. Javier Tondo for Cervélo TestTeam there, you can see, with Carlos Sastre just behind him. And Vladimir Gustov on his other shoulder. Tondo lying better in the overall classification than Sastre, but Sastre is team leader. They are trying as hard as they possibly can now, these three, Sean, but it's pretty much a lost cause. Yes,
it looks very much the case, although full marks for trying here. They're really, giving it here, really digging in, and the three are contributing very well. But as we see there, like the advantage around the minute. What are they trying to do? Maybe they feel that if they, really push it on, they, might put the teams under pressure. But I doubt it very much when you have a number of teams wanting to do it. Well, then, and the final today, the run in. It's going to suit the numbers of riders on the front of the bunch, and very, very straight road. So it looks like that is only a matter of time before they want to take them back. But they're working very well and really giving it everything here and continuing on, not throwing in the towel at all.
No. What is the mentality of the rider? Or the breakaway, Sean? It's a question I often ask, but it's still pertinent, and it's a question that a lot of people watching cycling for the first time will be asking themselves. If those guys are out there, and it's quite clear that at some point they're going to be reeled back in. The gap has gone out, as you can see, to about 1:30 or so, but it appears to be the case that they'll be reeled back in. Why do they keep persisting at the breakaway?
Well, I think when you're out there and you know, you're going to get the time, the air time, and that's so important for the sponsors. And you know, when you put the effort in, 70% of the day, 60% of the day, well, then if you just sit up, you lose all that time which they are getting, and they're actually getting extra time here. It looked like, you know, 20 kilometres ago they could have been taken in at any time, but they're holding off the bunch, although the bunches might be allowing them to stay out there as well. But you know, as we can see here, they're getting great exposure for their sponsors. And I suppose when you make it into the break of the day, which is not an easy thing to do because there's a lot of action in the earlier part of a stage and every stage, so to get up with a small group, it's a good day's exposure for your sponsors.
It's Team Sky who have got to the front now. There's one man from HTC Columbia, one from Garmin Transitions, and nobody from Rabobank for Graham Brown, and nobody for Quickstep because they've got a man in the break. And Walter Whalen's safe in the knowledge, I guess, that other teams are going to hunt it down. That as long as Tozzato and Co are with him, they can deliver him to the line in some sort of reasonable shape. Matt Goss today, well, surely his confidence must be sky high, Sean, because he had a terrific win yesterday and some very, very good riding by Goss. Quick gel squirt, well, probably a caffeine gel, I would imagine, for Charlie Regelius on the front. And they really are. They're going through everything now. They go through the bottles, go through the gels, everything they possibly can. There's a real urgency about them.
Yes, it's the time now to just, you know, get the final, you know, food intake, a gel, whatever it is. Also, you know, to keep on drinking is very important. And when you're out here with 3 riders, you burn a lot more energy than you have a big group of 10 or 12 riders. So you have to be careful that, you know, you do not run short in the final 10-15 kilometres. And we can see that they're topping up with liquids and with food. And also the way they're riding, there's quite a lot of urgency. They're just pushing on here, and to see how long they can last out.
.8 kilometres to go today in this stage 10. 230 kilometres running from Avellino to Bitonto. Tomorrow we have the longest stage in the Giro d'Italia of 260 kilometres. Well, this is the area that Giovanni Visconti took his pink jersey in when he was in the Giro d'Italia back in 2008. Of course, he's riding for ISD Neri now, and they're not riding in this year's Giro d'Italia. And they run all the way across the spine of Italy today. The Apennines are further up, really, but from Avellino on the west coast to Bitonto on the right coast, the east coast of Italy, Ruvo di Puglia, and this is where Visconti took his pink jersey in 2008. On that day, I think it was probably likely that the finish was a bit more. I seem to remember the finish was a bit harder than it is today. More of a sprinter's finish today. Let's just describe how it is in the run into Bitonto today, Sean. It's not the easiest of last kilometres or so. As they run down to a very sharp, they've got a left-hand kink at about 1.2 kilometres, maybe 1.25 kilometres out, and then a nasty sweeping right-hander to run around the outside of the town before they head in towards the Piazza Marconi in the centre.
Yes, it is a technical finish, and when you get to that, well, from the 2 kilometre point, it starts to turn a bit. There is a left there, and then, as you said, another little bit of a left kink. a right-hander, and then it's just turning all the time until you get to the 250 metres. It straightens out a little bit, but in that 250 metres you cannot see the line. There's also a little chicane at about 120 metres, 130 metres, so it is looks, you know, quite a dangerous finish. And the final straight, you're not going to see the line until you're at that 130, 150 metres before the line, so it looks like a one which it could be a danger one, and with a big bunch of riders coming in, you know, that's going to be it's going to be an interesting one, certainly.
How do you deliver your sprinter in a situation like that, Sean? What are the tactics? I mean, the other riders have to be acutely aware of making sure they keep them out of trouble. Do you keep it as high speed as possible? Do you keep it a little bit lower speed? What do you do?
Well, you hope that you have a number of riders that can take you all the way to the last a 250 metre left-hander, and even at that point you need a rider in front of you, because 250 metres is a long ways out. But if you have 3-4 riders who can really take it up just as you come to the kilometre 0.3 from the finish, and really go for it. Difficult for anybody to move up there because it's turning all the time, and that's to be the big advantage. If there's a team that can really take it up for the sprinter, I think, you know, he could very, very easily pull it off, because when you're back 2 or 3 places from that sprinter who has been taken by the team along, difficult to move up in this final kilometre.
Yeah, absolutely. We shall see. Well, the great advantage, of course, is it's dry. 33.7 kilometres to go, and Sky is still pushing on the front with Christopher Froome. And behind is Maurice Possoni, the Italian rider. Froome, originally from Kenya, has, I think, a British mother, I think that's right. And some problems here for Jose Serpa. Oh, and who's he waiting for? Surely it can't be Scarponi, can it? Is Scarponi in problems? Look out for him. That is Bertoglia. Is that Bertognoli? Bertognoli is waiting here as well. Number 32, so surely Scarponi must have a problem here, because there's a whole raft of Androni riders waiting. There he is, Michele Scarponi. I would guess puncture, but we don't know. Haven't seen it. Michele Scarponi then has Jose Serpa and Bertognoli waiting for him. We don't know who the third of the riders is who's waiting up there. Back at the front with our 3 breakaway men who've been out for most of the day today. They went out within the first 25 kilometres, and they have been away with a maximum gap of 7 minutes and 50 seconds. It has got down as close as 50 seconds with the peloton breathing down their neck, but then they upped the ante a bit. And these 3 riders still working very well together. They've done through and off well together all day. There is Scarponi in his black bike. If you ever want to know who he is in the Androni squad, that's him, with the black bicycle, and the whole team back here. And not surprisingly, because Michele Scarponi is right up there in the overall classification. Scarponi, who did very, very well on the Strade Bianche to fight his way back towards the front. He's lying 10th overall at the moment at 3 minutes and 8 seconds. In fact, Mario Cipollini has gone so far as to say that he is the only man in this Giro d'Italia who can challenge Vinokurov and Evans for superiority at the top. Clearly, Damiano Cunego disagrees, because he's put a double-page spread in Gazzetta dello Sport today saying that he's in a contender again, that he feels he can win this Giro d'Italia for a second time. And safely through here. Ignatius Konovalovas and Martin Pedersen being involved in the last little tumble at the last little chicane like that. They're a fair way back, or they were a fair way back, Sean. They're getting back towards the car now, but puncture I would suspect, but we don't know.
No, it must have been a puncture, and yeah, quite a way back. But you know, no danger at the moment because the bunch is rolling along at quite a good rate. But as we can see here, you know, all the riders back for him, and he's going to get back in there without having too much worries. Not as we see yesterday when Sastre had a problem. Sometimes around the 30 kilometres to go, I reckon, as well. But you know, the racing was really on, and there was groups coming out the rear, and that is the danger one for Scarponi. It's not the case, and when you're in the cavalcade of cars, you can move up pretty easily. Although they're not using the cavalcade, when you have a lot of riders, it's not easy to do. But they're on the rear of the peloton at the moment.
Yep, they managed to get them all back there. Well marshalled by Gianni Savio, the director sportive of Androni Declan Giovanni. Got them all back there. And they've got Scarponi back up to the rear of the peloton, which is now being strung out in the attempt to track down these three riders. Hugo Dupont is doing the work at the front, so they're going to go up the left-hand side here, past the riders at the back, and take Michele Scarponi up towards the front, or somewhere near the front. Wants to keep him out of trouble. Does Gianni Savio. "30 kilometers remaining for these three breakaway riders, who are Charlie Wigelius of the Omega Pharma Lotto squad in the middle of these three. One win in the Giro d'Italia in a team time trial 3 years ago now. Dario Cataldo has won a stage in Coppi e Bartoli a few years ago, and fourth in the Tour of Missouri. And Hubert Dupont is the final man in the breakaway from AG2R Le Mondial. Cataldo riding for Quick Step. And now the peloton is trying to track these guys down, shut down the gap. It's been early in the day. It was HTC Columbia just rolling the peloton along, and now other teams have had to come to the front to do their bit of work, to share a bit. They've got their victories, HTC Columbia. They want another one, but there are equally other teams in the peloton who want to succeed. Sky are doing the work on the front at the moment. Gregory Henderson in fine form. Yesterday was well up there, maybe not quite as quick as Goss, and it was a little bit uphill maybe for Henderson, although he is a strong lad. He won a stage in Paris-Nice, stage 1, first road stage after the time trial at the beginning. And so Sky trying to deliver this man to the line. But the three breakaway riders doing very well indeed. They are 1 minute and 28 seconds ahead of the peloton, having just pulled it out of the bag because they were down to 50 seconds. The Liquigas team on the right-hand side of your shot, left-hand side of the peloton in lime green, keeping Vincenzo Nibali third overall and Ivan Basso fourth overall out of trouble. And Astana up at the front for Alexander Vinokurov, keeping him out of trouble as we go through Telizzi. The stage today, 230 kilometers in total from Avellino to Bitonto. Just one categorized climb, about half of the way through. The points were taken by breakaway rider Charlie Wigelius. Well, we've had some interesting little chicanes and bends through the towns we've been through so far today. Only one fall that we've seen, that of Ignatius Konovalovas of the Cervélo TestTeam, who just suddenly, the wheel tucked up underneath him, the front wheel, must have either touched something in the road or touched a rider or hit something, because he just went straight down. The other man involved in that, Martin Pedersen, but both back up and back on their bikes. 27 kilometers to go, and three men still have 1:28 of an advantage. Just a shade over 25 kilometers to go for the peloton, in bright sunshine for a change here in the Giro d'Italia. The pink jersey of Alexander Vinokurov, the leader of this race, just behind the very front of the peloton, keeping himself well out of trouble. He has the experience to do that. And Guillaume Blot sandwiched somewhere in the middle of these guys. Leonardo Duque did very well yesterday, the little sprinter from Cofidis. But it's clear that HTC Columbia have come back to the front to do their work. Marcel Zieberg. Just the one man, looks like Svein Tuft at the front for Garmin Transitions. Trying to deliver their man to the line. And it might be Jack, actually. Just trying to have a look at it. It might be Jack Bobridge who's gone to the front. Just a second. Bobridge been working very hard, although he's had, I think he said, trouble getting himself into form. We'll see him a little bit more. I'm sure Romney, big first race after the World Track Championships. Now, there's an interesting shot. Can you see Dupont on the front there? When you go back to it, should I say, Dupont. We were mentioning the other day about group sets. Somebody was asking us about the equipment that we're using. And we mentioned the fact that the SRAM shifters and the SRAM rear derailleur requires a much bigger loop at the back for the cable run. Much more looped, much more circular almost than both the Campagnolo and Shimano ones. And if you have a look at the shot of Dupont, because he's got white cable outer on it, you'll be able to see it. It's a really nice big loop. We were actually talking about the way that component manufacturers and teams work closely together, and that was one of the things we pointed out. Jason Phillips, the SRAM product liaison for all the teams, was at Paris-Nice talking to all the teams about just improving the shifting, just making it a little bit cleaner. And that was one of the things that we were talking about. It's really going at the front here now. Lewis pushing on the front for HTC Columbia, and goes Rennes through the shot. Codol in the red and white of Aquasiponi, just being pushed back into line by Alexander Vinokurov. Codol, of course, there protecting the interests of Stefano Garzelli. Here is Molfetta, where we have the sprint that earns the cash. 1,000 euros up for grab. First person through this sprint, and you will probably see the three breakaway men, if they've still got any advantage, going for a sprint here, because it's worth a few sovs in the back pocket. This is as far as we go today. Clearly, it's right on the coast. You couldn't go any further, or you would be swimming. You'd be a triathlete. Turn back inside towards the finish today. It'd be Tom-Tom. Here are our three breakaway men. And some of the motorbikes starting to come up through and past them, which means that the guys behind are not that far away. Well, hats off to these guys today. Been out there for a long time. They should be tired tomorrow. I'm still a little surprised that Charlie Vigelius has gone for something today, unless he's feeling super good, because tomorrow is a very lumpy stage indeed, a medium mountain stage, and maybe he'd have been better off doing that. I don't know. Clearly, the game plan is he knows better than anybody else. Here we go. 22.4 kilometers still to go for our three breakaways. They're still working well together. Robert Dupont of AG2R Le Mondial, Charlie Vigelius of the Pharma Lotto team, and Dario Cataldo of Quick Step. Super crowds once again. And now that the weather has perked up a little bit, so have the crowd attendances. They were absolutely mighty in the Netherlands, where we started this year, but a combination of going through smallish villages and rotten weather in the last few days has meant that there's not been many people out at all on the Giro d'Italia. It's nice to see big crowds. Right, here we go, past a point that's flagged up as being a bit dangerous. Beautiful shot in L'Equipe today of a man on a motorcycle, a commissar on a motorcycle, with a red flag held up ahead of the rest of the peloton as they went through this enormous lake of water lying on the road. He had the red flag up, indicating that it was dangerous, and rather him than me. It was a big motorcycle with one arm stuck up in the air and having to control the bicycle as well. Here come the peloton through that point. Oh, look at the crowds. Fabulous. That's wonderful. And you can see why the peloton reckon the roads around here can be a little bit dangerous. Here's the intermediate sprint. Now, who's going to take home the cash? That's the one thing we need to know. At 210.7 kilometers, you can see how smooth the road surface is. To get a drop of water on here, it gets very, very greasy indeed down here. It's Dario Cataldo who's driving away for the break, but Charlie's got onto his wheel, as has Gabor Dupont, but like Caisse racing that, and out the corner and get on the gas. Vogelius in the lead position with Cataldo in second. Yeah, Dupont just lurking in third. Looks over his shoulder, does Vogelius, to see what's happening with the other two. Are they going to play, or are they just going to keep rolling? Fantastic to see how many people are out in the crowd. Really good. I haven't got to wait long for the peloton either, these spectators. Oh, there we go. There's the peloton. And it's HTC Colombia. Garmin transitions working on the, and Garmin transitions working on the front. And mainly HTC Colombia. There's only one Garmin man in there showing willing. Just to make sure that they all stay together. It is a bit Caisse like this at the moment, Sean, isn't it? Get in the corner and then sprint out of it.
Yes, and they're really pushing on here. Our three leaders are pushing on big time as they come for the sprint. But I think that's the reason they maybe pushed on, because they knew that the sprint was up the road, and after the effort they put in, and as we mentioned earlier, I'm not sure exactly what way they've taken the sprints, but it's worth going for, because good prize money for those sprints. But back in the bunch, they're really turning it up as well, and the three up front are putting up a great fight.
They are. Well, here are the peloton. They're not that far behind now, as I think it's Renes of HTC Colombia has gone, or was it maybe Lewis actually gone, no, enough, I've had enough, I've done enough now. Underneath, filing along in one big long line at 17 seconds. It's all over for the three breakaway men. But still, they don't give up. With 18.9 kilometers to go, there's still the chance that something might happen behind. Well, you can almost sense the fact that it's over for these three now, and Vogelius was beginning to slow down the pace a little bit. He stopped pedaling for a while, just for a second, looked over his shoulder, thought, ah, well, I'll keep going. Dupont still wants to go. 18 kilometers remaining. Oh, look, that's 60 kilometers an hour, 65 kilometers an hour.
70 kilometers.
70, sorry, yeah. And that's, look at this. Is that Matthew Lloyd being distanced off the back, the mountains classification leader, and it's going great guns up the front here. There's no way they're going to stay out there as a trio if they keep going at 70 kilometers an hour.
And causing a lot of problems back in the bunch. We can see the gaps appearing on the tail end here, and it's they're really pushing it on. And as we came through that town of Molfetta, it was a little bit technical, very fast corners, and I think there was a lot of the riders maybe concerned about that. And again, they would be just getting information from the sport director saying, be careful, a few very fast corners here, and just stay near the front. But they're really going for it now, and this run-in is going to be very fast. When you see that doing 70 kilometers an hour at the moment, it's just going to keep at that and maybe go above that as we get closer to the finish.
This is the master ranks of HTC Colombia. What an amount of effort that
Bobridge
is putting in at the front. He's clearly coming back into shape, Sean.
Yes, he is. You know, to be driving there, and when you see at this rate the peloton is going to be just able to do a turn on the front, you have to be in real good shape, and it's telling us that he's getting back into this race. First number of days had been suffering, but definitely back into the moment.
Vitaldo, Dupont and Vigelius, it's all over for them, even though they're still driving on as hard as they can. That's 16.9 kilometers. Well, Cataldo, then that's it, sit-up time.
And the road suffers.
Nasty, isn't it?
Yes, not good here.
Vigelius is the first to stop pedaling completely. And the end of their long, long day in a breakaway. Peloton all together then, as Charlie Vigelius rejoins them after spending 200 kilometers away. There's Robbie McEwen. He was sitting talking to Cadel Evans a little earlier in the day. Robbie, well, is he beginning to ride himself back into form? He had a bit of a sore knee at the beginning of this Giro d'Italia. Still the same knees he's been having trouble with since the big crash he had in the Giro, wasn't it, a couple of years ago, or last year. So he's not in good shape. Wasn't in good shape coming into this. Didn't feel he was on top form, and the knee beginning to suffer a little bit. But seems to be going all right today. Up near the front.
Yes, he is up in a good position there, close to the front. And last year, of course, the Tour of Belgium, where he had that bad crash and really put him out of the Tour of France last year. And you know, we were hearing he had problems in this race, and the weather conditions the last days, that wet, colder weather is not good when you're carrying a problem. And the better conditions today would help, and it looks like that he is in better shape. But as a sprinter, even if you're a little bit off your best, you could stay up here at the moment. It's really in that final, you know, 2-3 kilometres when the pace really kicks up. Will he have got it then? And we'll soon see.
Soon will. 15 kilometres to go for the peloton. And the run-in today, just to remind you, a little bit on the tricky side, about 1.25 kilometres out. There's a little flick to the right, and then they have to have a very nasty round to the right bend. Far more than a 90-degree bend. And then they run around the outside of the town before swinging into the left into the Piazza Marconi in the centre of town today. Bitonto, the first time we've been here, so there won't be any of the director sportives who we were talking about earlier as ex-riders who have any experience of this run-in today. Sometimes that's vitally important that a director sportive has a knowledge of, or the director sportives have a knowledge of where they're going, and of course the riders as well. Some of them would have been to other venues before, but not today. Bitonto is the first time we've ever come here. And whoop, there's a crash. And one of these corners, and one of the Sky riders has gone down. As a Katusha rider, Sky and Katusha trying to untangle themselves. They have been quite technical, these finishes. It looks to me as if it's Froome who's caught up with one of the riders from Katusha. It's Walter Wayland, isn't it? I've got a feeling it's Walter Wayland who's caught up with Christopher Froome. And those two disentangling themselves. Here we are. We can't see what happens because, unfortunately, it's in the shadow behind the building. Even the helicopter hasn't got it, so we don't really know what caused that. But a number of riders locking up, so I should imagine that they all went piling in there rather quickly. A little bit of panic braking, and they've caught up with each other. It may not be Wayland. That is Froome, for sure. And we wait to see who the rider is. No, it isn't. Sorry about that. It's Reda.
Anthony Rivard from AG2R also in there.
And another quick-step rider who I don't know who it was, actually. Couldn't see it at all. So not an easy run in once again.
and luckily they're going at a very fast rate, and only a tiny number of riders coming down. You could see a big stack of riders there, 15, 20 riders, very easy, because just going into that corner, and when they seem to get tangled, middle of the road stuff really, so they could have been a lot more riders involved in that one.
Yeah, it could have been. Jack Bobridge sitting there in the group at the front, and he's becoming very impressive, Sean. I mean, we know how an impressive rider he is, but he's come into this Giro d'Italia struggling, hanging on at the back, and now he's riding himself into form, and he's at the front for the last 2 days, pushing along.
Yes, doing a very good job at the front, and definitely back into the race. He was on the end of the general classement there, and I think he still is actually. The first number of days suffered majorly, and we were asking the question, we talked about that, what was the problem, but I think just not good in the first days, but coming really good yesterday, and once again today.
I know a number of people, one person in particular I'm thinking of, who were complaining bitterly that Jack Bobridge and Carlos Sastre not performing for their fantasy Giro team. Poor old Carlos, can't blame him, he's had all sorts of bad luck. But Jack Bobridge coming good and performing a very vital role here for Garmin Transitions. I doubt if HTC Columbia would be too happy if Garmin didn't put somebody up there to help. And look, they've got a whole load of them coming in behind. Wow. Chapeau, Jack. Just under, should I say, 12 kilometers to go. With David Miller in the middle of your shot. And a lot of teams trying to become involved here now, Sean. We've got Guillaume Blot of the Cofidis team coming up towards the front. Leonardo Duque was in good shape yesterday. He came in quite high up in the top 10. He was in the top 10, so he's clearly got a chance today, and he's quite a gutsy rider.
Yes, he is, and he's there in the sprints, just a little bit off the real top sprinters, but you're always going to hang around, and he's always there, and he's going to have a go again. Duque, this finish today, maybe if you can get a good position, and just as you come to that 1200 meters before the finish, if you can get into the better sprinters' wheels, or a sprinter that's been carried by his teammates, that would be the perfect situation. And you're always hoping that you will get a real good run, get the right wheel, and then you never know, you could get a state victory. And as a sprinter, you always dream a little about that.
One man who might not be getting that today is Walter Wayland. I'm pretty certain that he was one of the riders who was caught up in that accident. Also, Raider was also another quick-step rider there. There were two quick-step riders, and I'm sure I saw Walter Wayland being one of them. I may be wrong, we'll have to see. Now's the time for Cadel Evans to stay out of trouble. He's got 1, 2, 3 men with him, which is good. Up towards the front, they do not want to get caught out. He's almost been caught out a couple of times when the pace has gone up. Super fast work by Reines on the front once again. Pushing on like crazy. But 2 or 3 riders caught out of the back. Christopher Froome was one of them for Team Sky, and 2 quick-step riders, one being Raider, and I'm putting my head on the block and saying Wayland was the other one. Interesting to see Bibox Bouygues Telecom up towards the front, Sean. We haven't seen them at all so far in trying to sort of get it all together for people in the sprint. Maybe for Bonnet, maybe for Arashiro, who knows? But they're certainly moving up towards the front. They've got nobody in the general classification to go for.
No, and Bonnet would be the man. I think he's maybe the stronger sprinter of the team, and you know, if you get him into the position as well, and that's what the only thing they can do is just, you know, keep him up there at the moment and take him into that hopefully final 2 or 3 kilometres as far as possible. But they haven't got a team who can really do it in that final 2 kilometres when it's really, you know, a lot of fighting, a lot of pushing. So, you know, do it now and give him as much aid as possible, and then set him into that position, you know, with the 2 kilometres to go hopefully. And he is a rider again who, if he gets, you know, a good positioning, gets a good wheel, he could, you know, do a lot in the sprint, because he is capable of winning bunch sprints.
Marco Pinotti, who himself is well up in the overall classification, is now on the front doing his best time trialing bit. This is the chase back on. Looks like Henderson's had a problem with he's got Dario Cioni with him, and Henderson gets up back to the back of this group. The Futon Cervélo riders who are in here. Brandel is one of them, the Austrian man, so clearly a problem for Sky, having done a lot of the work to keep the pace high and bring back the breakaway. They've got Greg Henderson with a bit of trouble. Now look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them right at the back. They're on the left-hand side of the peloton, on the far side of your screen, and they're all waiting, ready to bring Greg Henderson up towards the front. It's a dreadfully difficult time to have a problem, Sean, because if they don't get him up there now, it's game over.
Yes, it is, you know, not a good time at all to have a problem, and you know, to make the effort to move up, the problem is you can pay for that in the end of the final sprint. And as we can see, with just, you know, under the 8 kilometres to go, first of all to get back into the rear end of the bunch, and then to move up through the bunch, you know, it takes a lot from the rider, and even if you have maybe 4 or 5 very good teammates to do it, you know, it's very, very late in the day to be trying to make that big move to the front of the main bunch.
No problems for Rubens Bertogliati. He needs a wheel. He's going to get one from the Mavic car. Well, he stopped at the side of the road, and the Mavic car hasn't, so he must be waiting for his own car. Front wheel. Out comes the mechanic. Bertogliati doing exactly what he needs to do. Just not panicking. Getting that wheel out ready for the mechanic to come along and replace it. But still, rotten luck for Rubens. Milram up towards the front as well now. I've got one man in there. Robert Foster is clearly in good shape, although whoever it is for Milram getting stuck in there looks over his shoulder and can't see Robert Foster. That's Danichenko. Danichenko got a problem with, it looks like either again rear flat or something with the rear derailleur. There's another rider just peeled off the right-hand side of the peloton at the back with a problem. There must be, I wonder if there's little tiny stones or something on the road here, little bits of flint or whatever, because we've got about 4 or 5 people all having problems at the same time.
And not the time for the big favourites, the general classmen men or the sprinters, because if you have a problem now to get back in here, it's going to be a very big effort, and for a sprinter, if he has a problem, you know, it's just too late now. So hopefully that you know, the general classmen men more, so that they will not have any problems here.
The way Sky have moved up towards the front, Sean, that's impressive, because if they're bringing Greg Henderson up from the back, a very impressive piece of riding.
Yes, it is. We see them just, you know, 1.5 kilometres further down the road. They were very much back in the tail end of the bunch and made a great move up. And we see Barry there on the front of the bunch, just towing it along at the moment. Yep,
that's Wiggins, right in the middle of your shot. And I guess Henderson will be just behind him. It is, in fact, it is Henderson. I'm sure of it. Let's just have a look at him. Yep. Greg Henderson sitting behind Bradley Wiggins doing the work. And twirling the pedals is Pirazzi. Pirazzi was in the break on the very first day on the road. And Pirazzi going for one himself with 5.5 kilometres to go. But frankly, the peloton's going so quickly, he's going to have to be a Thierry Marie or a Wiggins to get off the front here. Fancy looking over his shoulders. And now Liquigas take up the charge. And the man pushing on at the front is Valerio Agnoli, by the look of it. Really, he's quite low over his bike. Turns a big gear, swings the bike from side to side. Looks a lot like Agnoli to me.
That's the one he's...
Which is more exciting than anything else. Now, I wonder, are they just trying to keep him up there because they think it's dangerous, Sean?
Yes, I think just a bit of fear maybe, and stay out front and just stay as much at the front as possible.
Agnoli leads Ivan Basso at the front of this group, and then behind the Sky train being driven along by the Canadian Michael Barry at the moment. Wiggins is sheltering Greg Henderson. Barry was doing most of the work. He's still there on the front for Sky. And then right behind him is Chris Sutton. Very impressive the way they brought Greg Henderson up from the back. And the road narrowing here. Maybe this is why Ivan Basso wanted Valerio Agnoli to pull him along a bit quicker. Over the train tracks. And Jack Bobridge hanging on at the back here now. Well, this is it's quite quick. Widens out. And back onto the dual carriageway once again. Still the two riders from Liquigas at the front. There is Bobridge, 114 at the back. Another problem for Cofidis at the back here. It looks to me as if Piet got a problem. Lamprey up at the front as well, Sean. And the big favourites are nervous about this because they've got men right the way up there. Lamprey have got people up there. The 1, 2, 3 of the BMC riders as they go under this banner. 3 of the BMC riders trying to keep their man out of trouble. Cadel Evans. But it's all a bit nervous at the moment. A lot of moving around.
Yes, a lot of movement, and of course the general classement men are nervous. You know, you can see a lot of them up here and a lot of their riders around the BMC riders, a few of them there, and that's what you've got to do for the general classement men. You have to just, you know, keep a few riders around them and keep them to the front, and if he has to move up, well then that's very important that you can have 1, 2 riders close to take him up on the outside, because very difficult to move up on your own when you're going at 60, 65 kilometers per hour. And also for the sprinters, that's what you need, a number of riders around you. And as we can see, the Sky team are really taking it up at the moment as we come to the 2.7 kilometers to the finish.
David Miller sits alongside Chris Sutton. Miller for Garmin Transitions and Sutton on the in the Sky team. Milram taken up on the right-hand side. Miller switches allegiances from the Sky line to the Milram line. And back again. Filippo Pozzato is up there once more, aiming to be the first Italian winner here in the Giro d'Italia for this year. There is Tyler Farah, 113, keeping himself out of trouble. 2 kilometers to go. That's the familiar style of Miller sitting on the front now. Head down, time trial towards the front. Keep his man, Tyler Farah, in a position where he can take more points today, if not win the stage. Remember, we're coming up to this difficult little flick in a minute. There's a right-hand flick. This is the right-hand curve. And they come piling down this long straight next bit of road. Oh dear, that's Cataldo. He's been in the break all day. And Miller pushing on at the front here, Sean. This is typical. We've seen him do this so often in the past.
Yes, and you know, what a distance he can ride in the front. You know, he takes it up there and continues at 60, 65 kilometers per hour, and he just can keep it going for such a long time. His time trial ability just really comes out here.
Very, very difficult to tell who's who in the darkness of the shadows of the buildings. With Matteo Tozzato getting to the front now and looking like he's going for something a little long, is he? Or maybe he's waiting for somebody. But I would think not, actually. Tozzato right behind the motorcycle, looks over his shoulder. Under the banner for 1 kilometer to go. Tozzato wants this one himself. I think he's going for it. Going for a long one. Getting really dug in. There's that Arashiro just behind him. I think it is the little Japanese rider, Arashiro. Tyler Farr is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back. Is that Henderson for Sky. I'm not sure it is actually. Very difficult to tell. That's an absolutely flying sprint, this. Tozzato can't manage it. Arroyo sits up. Foster's coming through on the inside. It's still being led out at the moment, and Tyler Farrar gets around the outside. Smart move. Digs in hard on the run down towards the line. He's in the perfect position now. He saw the Sky Rider in front of him. He went around the outside, totally committed. They're all looking behind. Farrar's still looking. He's got it in the bag. Tyler Farrar, downhill finish, takes the win. Beautiful bit of riding by the American. He saw that the Sky Rider was just easing up a little bit on the corner, and Fabio Sabatini was the rider from Liquigas who chased him all the way. But Matteo Tozzato started all the action on that downhill run into the finish by going for a long one himself. Simply didn't have the legs. He was just going too fast. Arroyo sat up for some reason. I think, well, either he's completely spent or he was waiting for somebody else to take it up. Missed out a little bit. There's a shame. As all the Cervélo TestTeam riders come in, all in one group. There's Thomas Fockler coming in. Matt Lloyd is coming in, managed to get back on there for the Omega Pharma Lotto squad. Here we go. Let's just have a look at this.
And we can see the Dean, I think, is the Garmin rider who takes it up here, and that is, you know, it's great when you have like. No, it's not. It's.
I think it's Tuft, isn't it?
Yes, it could be Tuft. Yes.
Difficult to tell at this height at the moment. It's Dean. No, it is Dean.
Yes,
you see his knees are sticking out.
Yes.
Must be Julian Dean.
And when you have somebody to lead you through like this, it's a perfect situation. And you know, it was just so easy for Farah in the final 100 meters.
There's Julian Dean. But look at the way he goes around the outside of the Sky Rider just to make sure he's in the right place. Sabatini gets onto his wheel, but Dean just keeps going. Farah gets up to the rear wheel of him, but clearly the fastest man. And Sabatini coming at him, but he's easing up. A great win for Garmin Transitions and a great win for Tyler Farrar. He's proved himself to be the fastest man here this year at the Giro d'Italia. So super stuff once again from the American outfit.
Yes, real good job there. And of course, you know, Farah, he was in a very good position, and then Dean, you know, just taking it up for him. I think Dean expected Farah to be in his wheel, and you know, he just went for it into the corner, but Farah reacted very quickly, as you said, and just went around everybody else and got back into the slipstream very quickly.
So he adds more points to his tally in the points jersey. Here's the stage result then. Tyler Farrar, Fabio Sabatini, Julian Dean, Robbie McEwen getting in there, 4th spot. Robert Forster still up there in the top 5. Good stuff. Sebastianino, Andre Greipel and Danilo Hondo round out the top 8. Certainly a fast and furious finish downhill. And then a couple of bends thrown in. I say it all the time, but I'm sure glad it wasn't wet. A little bit of an uphill dig at the end. And the only thing Garmin Transitions can be disappointed about is that they didn't have a 1-2. Robbie McEwen is coming back into form, I think, Sean. He is finishing well there, 4th.
Yes, it's looking better. I think one of the best sprints we've seen, maybe for Robbie. Just you know, not far off at all there. So it looks like that maybe just starting to find his form here. And
once again, a good result, a good performance by Fabio Sabatini, who got himself up here. He's I think he's been 2nd or 3rd once already in this Giro d'Italia, and a good run by the Liquigas man. Again, he does it most of all by himself, which is always good to see. And Forster, once again, in good form. 5th spot for Robert Forster, the German.
And of course, this run today, if you get the position right as you came to the last kilometre, if you get a good position there, well, then you can do a lot of the sprint, and you can, you know, get a top 4 or 5 place, because difficult for riders to move up here in that final 500-600 metres, certainly.
This is the overall standings, no change. Alexander Vinokurov ahead of Cadel Evans, Vincenzo Nibali, Basso, Pinotti. This is the most significant day in the Giro d'Italia so far. And why is that? Because at 20 kilometers, 56 riders went away in a break. And just think about it for a second about who was amongst them when I read them out. These are the names of the riders who went away. Brent Buchwalter from BMC, Codol and Donati from Aqua Sapone, Dupont and Efempkin from AG2R Le Mondial, who was at 7:56 this morning. Bertoliati, Ochoa, Serpa and Worf. It's a Bertolini, sorry. Ochoa, Serpa and Worf from Androni. Astana, Giuffre and Stangeli. B-Box, Bouygues Telecom. Faulkner, Godin and Trofimov. And then Caisse de Pan, a whole raft of riders. Amador, Arroyo, who is at 4 minutes and 22 seconds this morning. Jonathan Kirienka and Losada. Cervélo, Carlos Sastre at 9:59. Vladimir Gustov, Vis and Javier Tondo at 6 minutes and 34 seconds. Pozzovivo went away from Colnago. Quilla of Futon Cerveto, Mayoth as well. From Garmin Transitions, David Miller at 19:25. Daniel Martin, Mathieu Bono from Lampre. Agnoli, Del Antonio Kizolowski, who was at 4 minutes and 25 seconds this morning. And Venotti from Liquigas. Bekeland's De Grief, Matthew Lloyd, the mountains classification wearer from Omega Pharma Lotto. Quickstep had Cataldo and Pinot. Rabobank, Stephen Kruiswijk and Ardia. Sky, Wiggins, who was at 10:54. Barry, Cummings and Possoni. HTC Columbia had Matt Goss, the sprinter, up there. Katusha, Caruso and Horach. Milram, Gerdeman and Rus. Gerdeman at 8:14. Team Saxo Bank had Sorensen, Didier Laurent, we understand, at 8 minutes and 1 second, although we've not seen a single sign of him so far. And most significantly of all, Richie Porte, 2 minutes and 22 seconds down. The young Tasmanian, 25 years of age, is in the front group. They got a massive 17 minutes and 35 seconds, and they are still over 15 minutes ahead of the Maya Rosa group. And that is this group you're watching on the road now. It's being pushed along by Astana, Androni and BMC. And why is that? Because Scarponi missed a break, Garzelli missed a break, Vinokurov missed a break, Evans missed a break, Basso missed a break, Nibali missed a break. They're all out the back. This is the most significant stage we've had on the Giro d'Italia so far. It is freezing cold and raining. They've all got full gloves on, full rain capes on. And it's been blown to pieces, being pushed on by Cervélo, Sky and Saxo Bank at the front for Richie Porte, Carlos Sastre, Javier Tondo and Bradley Wiggins. And it's caused absolute mayhem. It is a really significant day here in the Giro d'Italia. Little Pozzovivo managed to get in the break today, but Sean, we looked at the situation when we came in to the commentary box, and just astonishing.
Yes, it's amazing, like the number of riders that just got away here, and some of the favourites, as you mentioned, the big favourites really slipped uphill, leaving that many riders get away. And of course, you know, we talk about Sastre, you talk about Richie Porte, maybe not a big favourite, but Sastre, you know, at that just under 10 minutes, is always a danger man when you limit to a group of 50 riders.
Live pictures here, stage 11 of the Giro d'Italia. It's the longest stage in the Giro, 260 kilometers to L'Aquila today, the scene of the dreadful earthquake a number of years ago. It's still not completely rebuilt. They've still got problems there actually, because they're trying to rebuild it well, the authorities said they had to rebuild it in a different manner so they won't have it again, and they want to rebuild it in a historical context. But lots of riders showing their support for L'Aquila this morning. I know we have a certain viewer who is an earthquake engineer. I met her recently at a coaching session, which was interesting. No doubt tell us all about L'Aquila. The Twitter feed is spokesmen, if you want to contribute at all. My apologies for the delay coming from Warsaw, but let's just recap very briefly. This is the chasing group of the Maglia Rosa. Somewhere down there, Alexander Vinokurov is going, what the hell has happened now? As Rubens Bertogliati gets on the front and does his bit. The Androni squad are working super hard because Michele Scarponi missed the break as well, as did Cadel Evans. And there's Carlos Sastre. He is in this breakaway group today. I mean, how on earth did they let him just slip away? There we go. The TestTeam squad have got a lot of men in this group. They have Amador, Arroyo, Janison, Kirienko and Losada. Remember, David Arroyo was only 4 minutes and 22 seconds down. This is going to completely change the face of the race, Sean. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be generous, let's assume they've got a 10-minute advantage, and these guys can pull back 5 minutes in 50 kilometres. What's going to be the face of the race tomorrow when we wake up?
Well, you can see over the last number of kilometres, quite a number of kilometres, we can see the gap 13.04, so it's coming down very gradually, but you know, quite a long time ago it was around the 15 minutes, so they're not pulling it back anyway quickly. And of course up front we have quite a big group of the 56 riders. There's still 35 riders I reckon, maybe plus up there in the front, in the group of Vinokurov and all the big favourites, or a lot of the big favourites who are cut out in that second group on the road. There's not a big group there, I think maybe 40 riders maximum, so you know, there's it's a balancing now. And up front, of course, when you see the TestTeam, Sky, there's a lot of teams up here with quite a few riders, and they're really pushing it on. It looks like we could see about you know, 12 minutes, 11 minutes of an advantage when we get to the finish for this group, and what a change about in the general classement. And it just catapults some of the riders were a long ways off. As you said, Wiggins, you know, over 10 minutes, Sastre 10 minutes down. It's really going to put them into the position of, you know, to be challenged for this race again. Look at Richie Porte, he's up there at 2:26, only 2:26. Will he hold on up there? Arroyo from the TestTeam, as you mentioned, in a very good position as well, you know, at 4:22. But is he strong enough to stay up there? I think it's Sastre's making, you know, doing a great job today. Wiggins as well is going to move up very much there. For me, the big danger men in the general classement.
Arroyo, of course, has had top 10s in the Giro. Placed pretty high up in the, well, certainly top 20 in the Tour de France as well, so I'm not so sure that he's not a real candidate for top 5 glory if he keeps this up. 50 kilometres to go. They are on the climb of the Capo di Valli. It's a second category climb, but it's a fairly long one, 8.6 kilometres, and it's a long stage today. 260 kilometres. One tumble we saw at the feed station as they went through. Steve Cummings got caught up with the Soignier, and I think just got to stop dead in his tracks as he tried to grab a musette and managed to get about 3 or 4 of them. They all went clattering to the ground. He went clattering to the ground, but he's up and he's back at the front, so no real damage done. This is the rider from Cervélo TestTeam there doing the work. That Goss coming out of the front group, just being dropped on this climb, I think, or trying to come back. Goss is the only man from HTC Columbia to be in this front group to make the split. Riders who've abandoned today, by the way, Jeff Lauder, the BMC American rider, so that means that, well, we saw him mightily strong last year in the Tour of California. Another man down the tubes for Cadel Evans. Once again, René Mandry out today. Martin Pedersen, who was involved in a crash, the Futon Cervélo rider, was involved in a crash yesterday. He's been out today. Adam Blythe withdrawing from the race today. I can't say I'm surprised. It's been a real baptism of fire for the young man. Adam Hansen, which is a bit of a shame for HTC Columbia. He is out of the race today. And Thomas Rohriger, who was looking super strong on the Strada Bianchi the other day, has withdrawn from the race. So Rohriger, who I had as an outsider to do some to get a really good high place in the end, not there. Charlie Wigelius at the back of this group. David Moncoutier also in the group today. TestTeam have joined the work rate at the front now. It has been, most of the work has been being done by Sky, Saxo Bank. But you can also see that Linus Gerdemann is up there for Milram with that strangely swaying head style of his. He's about third back at the moment with the blue sleeves on his rain cape. There, just in your shot. Cervélo TestTeam, the other team to be doing work on the front. Javier Tondo and Carlos Sastre both in the group. Well, what an extraordinary day in the Giro d'Italia. We just simply didn't expect this at all. We expected a break to go, Sean, but not 56 riders, including some of the really big names in this Giro.
No, and we did not expect some of the favourites who've lost a bit of time to be allowed to get away in this one. And when you allow, you know, the favourites, and when you talk about, say, 10 minutes, allowing a group of 10 or 15 riders, it's very dangerous. But with 56 riders, you know, it's a surprise to see, and it had to be, you know, at a very, very fast pace, a lot of attacking maybe. At 20 kilometres, it looks like they were just at the top of a little climb when there was descent, so possibly on the descent in the conditions, maybe they just, you know, pulled away. And we haven't got real information exactly how the group went away, how the peloton split, I suppose is the word. But you know, the men up there, and you can never allow them to get into a group as big as this, and you know, that far from the finish, a stage of 262 kilometres and getting away at 20 kilometres after the start, it's you know, it's a long road, and they can pull a lot of time. And you know, down in the main bunch of Vinokurov, the race leader, and a lot of the other favourites, they're really starting to suffer now, the men that are pulling along. And also in the breakaway here, we can see Barry was suffering a bit in the front group as well, and he's at the putting in a huge amount of effort, as a lot of the riders here are, who have guys up in the general classement. I suppose the riders who were here earlier on, Androni, Di Giovanni, Aqua Saponi, those riders, were not seeing as many of them there. I think they were pulled back to the group to try and aid the chase back of the main group of the big favourites, but it wasn't enough to get this gap closed down.
And now it's too far back, and then it got too far back to do anything about it. Alexander Vinokurov in the pink there in this group of favourites. He's sitting on the wheel of Stefano Garzelli. Aqua and Saponi riders, there were two men in the break, Cadel and Donati. But real shock. I mean, does it send shock? It must send shockwaves through the bunch of favourites. You almost look at each other and wonder what's going on.
Yes, it's you know, it's amazing that I find it really hard to understand how they can allow that to happen. And I think, you know, the director of sportives, the riders themselves, it's just that I think, you know, the sheer pace of the race and the conditions, like it's just horrible conditions again. And we're having so many of those days, like with wet conditions, cold conditions. Yesterday was a little better. We were hoping that it was going to pick from here on and get better, but it's not the case. And it's just marking everybody, and I think that's also having a big effect. You know, we must remember this race starting in Holland. It's been such, you know, an aggressive race right from the beginning, the couple of days in Holland, and since we've been back here in Italy, it's just the conditions are really, you know, not good at all for the riders, and I think a lot of riders suffering. And the earlier part of the race, you know, in the first 20 kilometres, if there's a lot of attacking, difficult for some riders to get into the race. You know, you're not warmed up in the cold conditions, and I think that's the outcome of today. We've seen the big split in the bunch.
See what dreadful weather it is today by the face of Vasily Kirienko, a real tough nut of a rider, and blinking to try and get the grit and dirt and rain out of his eyes as they motor along. You have to say that, well, I don't know, did the game plan for Caisse de Pin, was it like the break is going, let's all get in it and drive it? I wonder, because there's 4 men in that group, including David Arroyo, as we said, started the day at 4 minutes and 22 seconds down. He's had top 10s in the Giro d'Italia before. I would suspect possibly that there was either an on-the-fly or a positive game plan to this before it went away, because, or as it went away, because they've got 4 men in, then they've just driven it along, I'm sure. Arroyo is well up in the overall classification, as we say. Tondo riding close to the front all the time, Sean. Looks fairly comfortable despite all the rubbish conditions again.
Yes, and he's the one that's up there in the general classement at just over 6.5 minutes down, and he's the one who was going to get back into this race. And with the final week of this this Tour of Italy being really difficult, you know, very steep mountains, and he is really good on that sort of terrain. So interesting to see how he will continue this race, because you know he's coming to the bigger scene this year. He was a very good climber, but to be up there for a 3 big race, and he certainly is getting back into that position now. I think the problem is, you know, when you look at the riders here, look at the teams, a lot of them have different colour rain jackets, difficult to recognise them, and it's the same situation for us. It's difficult to recognise riders here in the bad conditions, but also for the riders there. When you start out and really starts racing strong, you know, you cannot see what's happening, who's going up the road, who's going in the attacks, going away in small groups, and I think that was that must have been some of the problem today. And then when you get a split of, you know, 56 riders, it's so difficult to close down. If they really pull well together, and if there's only 25 of them riding on the front, it's so difficult to close it down when they get a minute or 2 minute advantage.
They got a lot longer than 2 minutes advantage today. 17:38 was the maximum they got so far, and now back at the front of the race, they've still got 13 minutes of an advantage, and they're riding towards the finish today in L'Aquila. It's been dreadful weather conditions again today. Here's Michele Scarponi. Scarponi just having to settle for trying to get his riders to close that gap down a little bit. Put yourself in the Director Sportive's chair for a minute, Sean, with some of the teams who made it into the front group. Sky, Caisse, Cervélo. What do? Do you keep them driving on? How would you have played the early part of this breakaway, for example?
Well, I think you know, the teams who have somebody can come back into the general classement, and you know, that goes for Sky with Wiggins, and then you had Barry and Pozzoni up there, and Cummins also. So you had 4 from Sky, and you know, you're going to get those riders, the 3 others, to do a lot of the pulling. As we can see with Caisse, they had 5 riders up there, so they're going to use, you know, a lot of the riders earlier on. They have been, they're still doing the work on the front here. Cervélo, of course, you know, they had the 3 riders, but we can see Weiss is the guy who was very close to the front and doing some of the work. So yes, if anybody in the general classroom that came back into it, well, they're going to get them to work and, you know, pull all day, and that's what they've been doing.
This is the sprint for the mountains classification. Jan Bekelens is the man going off the front for it. There he is. And the fight behind is between Tondo and Matthew Lloyd. I think Tondo just about got second, but I'm not sure. Bekelens is the man who's gone over the top first. Winner of the Tour de l'Avenir. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back very shortly. Welcome back. You're looking down on the, we're looking down on the breakaway. This is the group of the Maglia Rosa trying to shut down the gap little by little. It's Liquigas and Androni working on the front, and some of the big favourites having to come to the front and do the work as well. Scarponi just lying 3rd back in that group. And Arroyo deciding that enough's enough. I just can't go on anymore. I've done enough work as it is. If you're just joining us, the situation today, that this is the most significant stage in the Giro d'Italia so far. It's the longest stage at 260 kilometers. And this group you're looking here, the Maglia Rosa, Cunego, Gadre, Carpets, all sorts of things in there. They are over 13, or they were over 13 minutes back on this group here, which includes Carlos Sastre, Javier Tondo, Bradley Wiggins, and most significantly, David Arroyo of Caisse, and Richie Porte of Saxo Bank. Porte just a shade under 2.5 minutes down on the general classification, and he could pull on, he's almost certain to pull on the pink jersey tonight. The maximum gap that breakaway got, it was 56 riders who got away. It's an extraordinary amount. 56 riders getting away. They got away after 20 kilometers, which actually just equates as a little rise coming out of the start today at Luquera. And as they shot down the other side of that, I think that's where they must have got away. They must have pushed over the top of that little rise, forced the split, and then just shot off down into the valley after that. And these riders thinking, oh, we'll let them go for a bit, but they just went and went and went. 56 of them. And now there's about 40 or so, or maybe just a shade under in the first group, as they're just getting tailed off. They're getting very tired now. Well, pretty much all the big favourites other than Sastre and Tondo, Porte and Arroyo have missed the split. Scarponi second here behind Rubens Bertogliati, then Basso, then Nibali, Vinokurov, Evans in this group. Pinotti, you can see there in the yellow rain cape of HTC Columbia. He's also in this group, having missed the split. One man who is in the front group, though, is Kieselowski from Liquigas. A bit of a strange situation, him, because his two lead men are behind, in the group behind, but he finds himself up in the front and in a good position because he was very far down on the general classification this morning, 4 minutes and 25 seconds. There is Vladimir Karpets, the big Russian, suffering a bit today. Gadre in the brown shorts there. There's Stefano Garzelli in the white helmet with the red and white shorts of Aqua and Saponi. Damiano Cunego plugging away. He turns a fairly big gear for such a small guy. Bertogliati, this is exactly the sort of thing you were saying that Bertogliati is good at, Sean, the other day. He just gets on the front and he can ride for a long time.
Yes, he can, and he was in the earlier break. He was one of the guys from, you know, Andorra di Giovanni, and we can see him like he's back in the bunch. So he was pulled back as they were. There were 4 of them up there actually from the Androni di Giovanni team. So there's, you know, they've after been pulled back. Of course, Scarponi is the big leader there, and you know, they were taken back. But as we said, not good enough. But what a job Bertogliati is doing. He's riding on the front there. This stage, you know, it's not an easy stage. They're not big mountains, but it's, you know, up and down small mountains all day, very undulating, and he's doing a great job here. And that's, you know, where he comes out really strong. He just can ride there all day at the front, such a powerful rider. But when it's really steep, or if it really goes fast in the climb, difficult following. But as a pace setter, as a mystique, he can do a great job.
This front group being whittled down even further again, Sean, on this second category climb today at the Capo di Vali. And the chasing group 2 is only down to about, what, 30 men, I would think now. I suppose the only comfort the favourites can take is that they're all in the same group together. That's about it. The carpet's not looking at all happy, and really foul weather today, Sean, because they've all got their gloves on pretty much. I guess about half of this group have got full gloves on, but they've all got the rain capes on today. It's been really horrible weather again today. That must have aided the escape a little bit as well.
Yes, it does help to escape in a big breakaway. As we see Bertogliati here with short sleeves and everybody else wrapped up with, I reckon, you know, arm warmers at least, rain jacket, big gloves, and he's here on the front, and you know, he's able to support this sort of condition very well. And you know, it looks like, as we can see, the gap still growing out there. It'll be interesting to see now as we get to the 40 kilometres to go. It was around the 12:50, I think, the last time check we had. So, and the problem is in the chasing group, as you mentioned, there's, you know, riders just going off the rear, and it's just getting smaller and smaller. So the number of riders to chase here eventually is going to be down to the big favourites to have to walk here in the front, and you know, they're going to have to put their heads down. But I think it's going to be too late as we get to the 40 kilometre mark. If it's still you know, 11:30, well then it's you know, it's going to be finishing with 9-10 minutes certainly at the finish. That's what I would reckon today.
I was just going to ask that, Sean. I mean, how long before we just run out of domestiques? That's the big question. Scarponi, of course, is in the second spot in that line there already. Basso just behind him, and Nibali, and Cunego. There's really only one of the domestique riders up at the front now. There's still a couple lurking a bit further down the order, but at the moment it's just Rubens Bertogliati churning away at that gear. Oh, grand job as well. Garzelli does the rain jacket up once again. Pippo Pozzato is also in that group, by the way. And back with the leading group. Caisse once again contributing at the front, trying to pull things away. They have 4 men in the group. It's Amador, Arroyo and Jensen, who are sharing the work at the front, because the two bigger men, well, I haven't seen Losada doing any work on the front at the moment, although he could be. David Arroyo at 4 minutes and 22 seconds this morning. He has three teammates around him, a good position to be in. So too for Bradley Wiggins, Michael Barry, Steve Cummings and Maurice Bossoni. A good day for Wiggins and the Sky group as well, and the real expertise of Sean Yates paying dividends here. Sean, he saw what's going on and has made sure those guys have got in there.
Yes, I don't know if we can give the credit to the director of sports because you know, the way this one went.
He won't please you for that. He won't please you.
It was no. I don't think it is a tactic, and I don't think you can plan this that they're going to be, you know, a group of 50 riders. It's just the way the race developed. You know, the way they started out at the start of the race. The conditions also contributed a lot to it. So yeah. If you're in a good position, stay up front of the bunch. And if you look at all the big favourites here, you know, they're all the men who are really up in the top of the general classement. The other men this morning, you would say, well, I think the winner is going to come out of this number of riders here. The Bassos, Nibali, Vinokourov, Scarponi, Garzelli, and you know, when you're in the group there, you keep them in your vision and you just watch them. And I think they probably maybe sat back a bit further off, and they were probably saying, well, Sastre, he's out of the race now, we can't forget about him. Wiggins is out of the race.
Yeah.
And you know, those guys are just up the front and the split occurs and you're caught out, and that's it. It's something like in a big tour, when the conditions are as we have today, you just cannot be careful enough. You always have to be, you know, so careful. You have to watch the situation, and I think the director of sport will have a chat with some of the big favourites who've lost out tonight. They'll say, hey, you know, how can you be that far back in a group? When it starts to race and it really starts to go fast, you have to move quickly and get into that top 20, 25, 30 riders and be there, because the conditions, first of all, if there's crashes, if there's a descent, somebody can leave a split, and that's probably what happened today, maybe on this descent after 20 kilometres. Somebody not good in the descent in that 50th position left the gap open, and then up front they realised, you know, a lot of the teams, there were a lot of favourites cut out, and they just turned up the gas and they started to ride, and you're in the position then it's so difficult, impossible to rectify.
Do you think there's any possibility that there's a lack of communications at some point? I mean, it does seem strange, doesn't it, that they let them go that far out the gap without working really hard to pull them back. I'm just wondering whether they didn't get the information for some reason.
Yes, that is a possibility with the very wet conditions, the earpieces, the radios. Sometimes there is a problem, the communication doesn't get through, and that is a possibility there. And you know, if there's a split and you're not made aware real quick with the situation of, you know, plus 50 riders out front, as I mentioned, when it gets to 2 minutes, well then it's so difficult to close down, because if there's 20, 30 riders, these riders want to pull up front. And when you look at the teams that were represented, like Caisse, they definitely rode very strong. Sky rode very strong. There's quite a number of teams up there with big interests. And when you look at Saxo, for example, you know, they had three riders, we reckon, up there. We see Chris Sorensen doing a lot of the work. Porte and Seppo wasn't going to work with Didier. Laurent Didier was supposed to be up there as well. And I suppose they sacrificed him and they just pushed it on. And when you're in a situation like that, it's, you know, impossible to close it down.
12:54. The break is going back out a little bit again. And news from Eurosport travels like wildfire, you know. Already the message has got back via a third party from the car of Sean Yates saying it was planned, you know. Wry smiles in the commentary box. People are always going to say that afterwards. Not that I doubt him. Of course, there's Kirienka, Fokla, Laurent, Porte, Miller, Kieselowski, Adia. We're going to take a commercial break, but the gap is going back out again, and this is a real disaster for Vinokourov, Evans, Basso, Nibali et al. Rubens Bertogliati continues to thunder along here on the front of the group in the Maglia Rosa. The pink jersey on the shoulders of Alexander Vinokourov, well, at least until he rolls over the line. That's going to be it for today, because they are going to lose the jersey today. Astana. Not only that, but there are a whole group of other riders back in the hunt. And these guys want to do some serious work to overcome difficulties against riders like Javier Tondo, Carlos Sastre and Richie Porte. A bit of an unknown quantity for some of these bigger riders, Richie Porte, but he seemed to be so strong. He can climb. Maybe not a pure climber, but he can climb pretty well. More to the point, he can time trial, and that must be something that they'll have to look out for. I should think for a Tondo or a Sastre, they wouldn't be quite so worried. A rider like Alexander Vinokurov, for example, or Cadel Evans, but Richie Porte can time trial. And of course, Bradley Wiggins, who's shown he can climb there or thereabouts with some of the better riders and is an absolutely brilliant time trialist. Those are the riders they'll have to be careful for.
Yes, and I suppose when you look at the time trial, there's a mountain time trial which is really going to suit the good climbers, and Sastre, Evans should, or Wiggins should be able to do a good time there. But Richie Porte, he's a very good time trialist. Will he be able to put in a good performance on such a difficult time trial here? In the mountain time trial, the final time trial is a very short one, so not a huge amount of time trialing to do here. It's really the mountains, I think, where we want to see who can win this race. And now, with the situation totally changing around, for Richie Porte, it'll be interesting to see, can he support a 3-week race? That is the thing. The first 10 days, the first 12 days of racing, you can support that because he's probably done a lot of stage races of that distance. But a 3-week tour, to be up there on the front and also to be staying there, it's okay to get through a 3-week tour, but when you have to be every day out front watching the other favourites, well then it's very energy sapping, very using, and it will be interesting to see, can he hold on. But if he can do a really good tour and finish in the top 5, what a performance will be for him here.
Yeah, it certainly would. Goodbye for Bjarne Riis. Sure. We saw him winning the time trial on the Tour of Romandy at the end of it, and he carries himself so well, as well with the press and the public. Fantastically approachable, and as soon as he was interviewed, he was just clearly a likeable young man. And it's going to help in his future career as well. Togliatti still, tell you what, I better get back up the front, he says. Do a bit more. Jennison and Amador been sharing the work on the front. That is Amador. Jennison is the rider just ahead of him. Wiggins sharing a bottle and a bar with Maurice Possoni. Clever move by Sky to have 4 men up here. I mean, they're all riding around Wiggins for sure, but they've got strong men up here as well, haven't they? Possoni's been strong all the time. Wiggins, of course, came into this Giro d'Italia as one of the outside favourites, so to speak. And Cummings has been absolutely mightily strong. What a turnaround from his days at Barlow World, where I think he was just a little lacklustre because he wasn't happy more than anything else. And Michael Barry, always strong. Terrific to get 4 men up here. Barry in the break yesterday as well. A good Giro d'Italia.
Yes, he is in good shape. We see him in the breakaway, really strong, and of course, he loved this. When he has to ride in the front, he seems to, really like doing that. And when you get into a situation today where, at 240 kilometres to the finish, you're in a breakaway, and what better man to be up there with you, because Barry can just keep on riding and keep on pulling for so long, kilometre after kilometre, and he can do that for many hours, and we can see, what he's doing here. He's been, very, 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 very strong all day.
Michele Scarponi with Rigoberto Urán just pulling over to the side of the road and saying sorry for some reason, just getting in the way, I think, as they wanted to keep riding. Possoni from Team Sky with Steve Cummings just behind him. It's a bit of an art, isn't it, Sean, learning how to eat chewy bars and ride hard at the same time and breathe. It's not easy managing to do that, but on a day like today, they've got to get a constant supply of food down their necks, really, because it's cold They're riding hard, and it's the longest stage in the race. Incredibly important to keep fueled up properly all the time. Always to keep those reserves just topped up all the time.
Yes, it's, today, when you consider the weather conditions and the distance they've been out there, you know, when you're one of the riders, or if you're the riders who are really pulling it on all day and working all day in the front, well, then you have to be so careful in the end of this one, because, you know, 262 kilometers.
Yep.
That's where you have to be very careful with the conditions also. If you're sitting in the wheel and you get carried along, well then, you know, you're not burning as much energy, of course, by getting drafting, and it makes it so much easier. And some of the bars and the colder weather as well, it's difficult to get them down because they can be, you know, very chewy, and in the warm conditions they seem to be, you know, a bit softer. But today I think it seems to be the riders are having problems. They're chewing a lot trying to get them down there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, indeed. Some brands were absolutely appallingly difficult to chew in the cold. They've got a lot better over the past few years. Something I've got to know a lot about fueling up recently in training for these tandem records. The pilot of the tandem has to eat Jez Hastings has to eat about every 20 minutes, otherwise, after about the first 2 hours, otherwise he just falls to bits. I don't have to eat quite that often, but even so, fueling is just brought home to me just how incredibly important keeping those levels topped up were all the time. Got a massive amount of nutritional advice from professional teams. It's incredibly important nowadays. Most teams have consultant nutritionists as well as the suppliers of their particular products.
And of course the tandem, the guy who's out front is, you know, the most, he's the windbreaker, so he's going to burn more energy.
There's a cheeky smile on your face there. He's supposed to tuck in and just get on with it, really. The worst thing's actually trying to grab musettes. We spent a whole day practicing musette grabbing. Because the guy at the front has to control the tandem while I have to pick up the double musettes each time. Talking of musettes, Steve Cummings got caught up with a couple when they went through the feed zone and went flopping down onto the deck. Luckily, not too badly hurt, because he got back onto the front, as you've just seen, and he's doing his work again. 30 kilometers to go then for our breakaway riders. The last time check was 12 minutes and 52 seconds over the big jersey group of Alexander Vinokurov. Also in that group, if you're just joining us, is Cadel Evans, Michele Scarponi, Ivan Basso, Vincenzo Nibali, Stefano Gadselli. They're all at Damiano Cunego, Vladimir Karpets. They're all in that second group on the road. There is Vinokurov, and just as Sean was saying, it's time for the favourites to start contributing to this as well. They've had the domestiques doing most of the work, and now they're coming through to do their own work. Nibali, Evans, then Pinotti just behind Gadselli in the black and grey rain jacket there. Pinotti in the yellow rain jacket, and the domestiques largely used up, Sean, now. Nothing left.
No, I think as the brothers have been to a standstill, really, and you have to, you know, at a point you have to take it up. Is it going to be too little too late for the big favourites? Because, you know, we see the last time check 12:55 with just under 30 kilometres to go. I think some of the riders we've up here in this breakaway, it might be difficult to knock them off this position, because some very good climbers, and I feel that they should have, you know, organised the favourites, you know, just talk with each other and say, look, we've got to ride here if we want to have any chance of winning this race.
I suspect that there was probably some sort of communications problems and they didn't realise how far away they got, but they got away. They got away to a maximum of 17 minutes and 38 seconds. Now it was dragged back a bit, but then started to go out again, which is the favourites have now got on the front to try and drag it back. The domestiques all used up, empty shells of themselves. Vittoriati was doing a tremendous amount of work on the front. The last time check at 12:52, a think they'll probably have cut that down a little bit, Sean, but it's the first time they've been riding in earnest, and of course they'll respond at the front as well if they can. Well, we saw with people like Cummings getting to the front.
Yes, well, I think on the front, the ones we have riding here are they've been riding for a long time, and it's going to be difficult for them to up their pace. Where back in the bunch, the big favourites, they have been sitting on the group, so they're certainly much fresher, and I think the gap will come down. But when you see 12:53, you said it came down by 3 seconds, I think, and at 28 kilometres just over to go, it's they're going to go up really fast. But when you look at the final, it is difficult today, and we could see that breakaway losing quite a bit of time, but it's not difficult that they can lose many minutes. I think they're going to be 8 or 9 minutes of an advantage for this breakaway for the ones out front.
Not a nice finish either, but they won't worry about it too much today. I mean, there'll obviously be somebody who wants to take the stage victory from this breakaway, but I wouldn't want it to have sprinted much in today's weathers into L'Aquila. It's an uphill finish, and there's some very nasty bends in the last 2 kilometres or so, 2 to 3 kilometres.
Yes, well, just before the 2 kilometres to go, there's a descent, and it's a very fast section, and then you come to a very tight hairpin, a right-hander just at the 2 kilometre, and then at the kilometre, just outside the kilometre and a half, actually, it starts to kick up, and there it does turn around a bit, but it's an uphill, and it's quite a steep up at the last 1.5 kilometres, 7%, and it goes up to 11% gradient, so it is very steep, and it's not going to be a problem in that case, because they won't be going at that high speed, and it's going to be real difficult after the day we've had. Once again, the kilometres they have in the legs, 260 plus kilometres, it's going to be a very, very hard finish, and it will be a fight, I think, to get to the line, whoever's battling out for the state victory.
Stefano Garzelli, winner of the Giro d'Italia back in the year 2000. A long time ago now, isn't it? But he's still up there. Always fighting in the Giro d'Italia. We don't see him in too many other races now, but he loves the Giro, and of course the smaller Italian races is always fighting around him, and the favourites all contributing to the front here now, and pushing on. At the back it's not until it's Wies, so there's the world champion Cadel Evans in the black rain jacket with black gloves. Very, very difficult if you're following cycling for the first time. The Giro d'Italia is probably not the best one to get used to which rider is which, because we've seen more rain capes than normal. Carpets, big tall Russian goes to Scarpone and Pete Kaplan. It always looks a bit weird when he puts a casket on Scarpone. He's the only man who can make all this cycling gear look really oddly fitting. For some reason, but he does. There is Evans. Again, if you're new to cycling, the rainbow, as they call them anyway, the rainbow bands around the bottom of the shorts there, and the colour of his helmet help you pick him out as the current world road champion. That's not as an official badge of office. The official badge of office is a white jersey with those same bands around the middle. Very, very famous. Vincenzo Nibali, number 132, the pink jersey, already in this year's Giro d'Italia, and still one of the favourites as they go under 35 kilometres. The gap has not come down at all, Sean. It's not good. Back on the front is Jonasson for Caisse. Under 25 kilometres to go for the leading group. Of about 35 to 40 riders. It's difficult to tell who is in there, but the significant people are now Javier Tondo, Carlos Sastre, Robert Kieselowski, and Richie Porte, who started the day just 2 minutes, 22 seconds down on the pink jersey. And at the moment, if it stands the way it is, if you do a quick bit of mental calculation, Alexander Vinokurov would be 10 minutes down on Richie Porte by the time they finish the day today. Absolutely foul weather once again, and cold. Not just raining, but cold. The front group also containing Bradley Wiggins right back in the hunt today. I'm finding it almost incredulous that so many big favourites have been caught out. It's quite amazing. You might expect it, we've seen it, we saw it of course in the Tour de France, not that long ago, where people, Oscar Pereira for example, went away in that big long group, but they weren't favourites, they weren't people who could be danger men, so to speak. But in this group that's got away, Sean, there's definite danger men, and they still managed to let them get away.
Yes, well, when you look at Sastre, Wiggins, two real danger men, and although I think maybe the time they had lost around the 10 minutes for Sastre plus 10 minutes for Wiggins, 10:54. Probably the other riders were saying, the other teams, well, they're really out of the race now and they're going to concentrate maybe on stages. And that's where you get caught, and the situation today, exactly, you know, the big group as well helped. The weather conditions, you know, also difficult to control, to see who's moving in the break, who's in the break immediately, and so it's a combination of things. And as we can see now, and as we talked about a bit earlier, the big favourites getting it together. I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier, that, you know, with 50 kilometres to go, 55 kilometres to go, the big favourites who had nobody up there really. When you look at Vinokourov, he have a rider up there, but is he good enough to stay up in the general classement? I doubt it very much. Basso from Liquigas, for example, like he should ride earlier on, and you know, Scarponi, of course, he'd been working, but if they had got together and all the big favourites ride with their domestiques, well then that gap would have come down many minutes already, and they would be still in a situation. It's funny to see they left it so late. I wonder, you know, why. Was there an order maybe from the race organiser? You cannot allow this to happen. And sometimes I have seen it with race organisers, not in big tours, because this is a rare occasion. We haven't really seen a breakaway, get away, a big group. We have seen big groups get out of the bunch and it looked dangerous, but they were eventually closed down. But for a break to succeed with a lot of, you know, big favourites and a lot of good riders who can maybe hang on in here, and Tondo's of one who maybe could do a lot in this race. It's surprising to see that they waited so long, and I think maybe the race organiser might have said to the teams, look, you know, the big riders, the favourites who are caught back in this bunch, what's left of the bunch, you've got to ride to make this race some bit interesting, because if you do not, well then it's going to be 12, 13, 14 minutes to finish, and the race is over really. And very possible the organiser did have a word with some of the director sportives.
Yeah, the director sportives had a word with themselves, for sure. The front group are pushing on now. Beckeland's for some reason went off with about 50 kilometres to go over the top of the last climb. Just had a little dig by himself, no apparent reason. The group is way down. I can't remember seeing a breakaway like this in a Grand Tour. Well, I just can't remember it, with 50 riders or so, with a whole bunch of danger men and favourites, former Tour de France winners, a man just outside the podium of the last year's Tour de France, strong teams in the first group, and then all big favourites get caught out. I suspect there's been some communication problem as to telling the group of the Maglia Rosa exactly how far ahead the other group was getting. They clearly pushed away on the ascent of the first little rise of the day, which is an uncategorised climb at about 20 kilometres, and then shot down the other side. The weather must have played a part in that. It started to rain very early on, must have played a part, but there's some speculation that a lot of the riders went back, favourites went back to get their rain jackets and so on from cars. But yeah, look at the guys in the front, they've all got rain jackets. They've all had to do the same thing. They weren't all carrying them at the start of the day, so I'm not quite sure how much that contributed to the overall. "19 kilometres to go then for the breakaway riders." Just to bring you up to date with who got away this morning in that breakaway, it was Brookwater of BMC, the only rider to do so from BMC. Codol and Donati of Aqua and Sapone. Dupont and Efebkin of AG2 Mondiale. Efebkin too will come into play as well, because he's only 7.56 down on the general classification. You're looking now at the damage caused by the earthquake here at Aquila. Shows how close we are to the finish. Rubens Bertogliati, he's now back with the main group. Achoya, again, he went back from the Breakaway group to help Scarponi's group. Serpa and Worf, Jouffre and Stangeli of Astana were in here. Fokler, Godin, Trofimov of Big Box Bouygues Telecom, and Caisse have played it very, very well today. 4 men in the break. Amador, Arroyo, who is 4:22 down on the GC. Jamerson, Kirienka, and Losada. Jamerson is doing most of the work on the front at the moment on this descent, just stringing them all out here. Cervélo TestTeam, Carlos Sastre at 9:59, but you can never discount Sastre, winner of the Tour de France, and he's a man who comes always good in the third week of a Grand Tour. Vladimir Gustov, Marcel Vies, and Javier Tondo, only at 6:34 down. These are all temporary accommodations from the, or these have been built after the earthquake. Moncoutier and Fouchard from Cofidis, Pozivivo of Colnago, Quela and Mayoff of Futon Cervélo, Miller and Martin of Garmin, Bono of Lampre, Agnoli, Dan Antonio, Kieselowski, who is at 4:25, and Venotti of Liquigas, Bekelens, De Grief, Lloyd and Vigelius of Lotto, Cataldo and Pino of Quickstep, Kreuzfig and Ardea of Rabobank. We'll bring you up to date with the rest in just a minute. What today we've had in the Giro d'Italia. We're on stage 11. The weather is once again foul, and the very fact that Alexander Vinokurov has gloves on and a long sleeve shirt, oh no, sorry, he's got 2 arm warmers on, plus the rain jacket, plus the casquette, just goes to show the weather is not just wet, it's cold today. And with a gap at over 12 minutes from the Maya Rosa to the Breakaway group, it's game over for Vinokurov. Well, we have Planet Armstrong to put into our coverage here from San Francisco. And we will join Lance and the crew and Vincent Renault on the trail of the Texan once again after the first group has come in here on the Giro d'Italia, because for sure we got a few minutes to spare before the next group arrives. Tour of California rolls on. Back live here with stage 11 of the Giro d'Italia. We're heading into L'Aquila, where in April 2009 there was a huge earthquake which destroyed pretty much 50% or so of the historic centre of L'Aquila, the historic area of L'Aquila. We're still struggling to rebuild it. We saw it last year, if you remember. There was rubble all around us. And, this year the organisers, Angelo Zomalan, and the rest of the guys, renewed their pledge to come here, and they're going to stick to it. The people out on the side of the road today, which will please a certain friend of mine. My great enthusiasm for the crowds at the side of the road causing immense amusement yesterday. Absolutely nobody turning out in this weather, I'm not surprised. Although I would suggest that there's a fair amount lining the streets on the run in to the finish at L'Aquila today, because they're clearly here to support the town. They have their Forza L'Aquila jerseys on at the start of the day. 13 minutes and 30 seconds short. It's going out even more now.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, 12:23.
12:23, yes, so the last one came through there, and it's not coming down from 12:55 was the last time check, so or 12:53, so it's coming down very little, and we can see that all the riders here, the favourites, are putting in a big effort here, but up front they're not slowing that much. I was expecting up front that they would be tiring after the effort they put in for such a long stage, that they would lose a bit more time now, but it's still holding out very well, and it looks like we're going to have this 9 or 10 minutes advantage for this breakaway.
Sanka Sorensen, a winner, momentarily look. End of the day takes to the front. He's got Marcel Lies of Cervélo just behind him. These two teams have done a lot of the work in keeping the pace high today. They have the man who will be in the pink jersey tonight, Richie Porte, in their ranks to Saxo Bank. And Vice's team, Javier Tondo and Carlos Sastre, capable of doing something in the last week of this Giro d'Italia. TestTeam have David Arroyo, 2 times the top 10 in the Giro d'Italia. Let's run through the time gaps that the big riders, big name riders in this front group have this morning to make up. Of course, they've more than made that up. But let's start with just running down the list. Alexandre Femkin, if you run in A to Z, by the way. Alexandre Femkin of AG2R Le Mondial, good all-round rider, not a bad climber, not great, but we shall have to see what he can do later on in this year's Giro d'Italia. Very strong rider. Twin brother of Vladimir Femkin, 7:56 down. He started the day. Other riders are going to make up a lot of time. Joseph Jouffre of Astana. This is a double-edged sword for Astana. They've going to lose the pink jersey today, but Jouffre was started at 11 minutes and 5 seconds down, and he can climb as well as is a good, strong all-round rider. TestTeam, David Arroyo started the day at 4:22 down. We've already said he's had 2 Giro top 10 places. He's had a top 15 place in the Tour de France. Clearly a big threat. Carlos Sastre of Cervélo TestTeam, 9:59 down. It's had a disastrous first week. Lady Luck has changed for Cervélo TestTeam today. They've got 2 men in this front group, and Sastre is one of them. He comes good in the last week of a Grand Tour, and nobody's going to dismiss him. He's won the Tour de France already. Javier Tondo is the other man, 6:34 down, a real revelation this year. And clearly a very, very good climber, and it'll be the climbers who decide this Giro d'Italia later on in the week. Slide outside it, Mayoth of Futon Cervélo, 18 minutes 38 seconds down. He'll get himself into the top 10 quite nicely. Thank you very much. Valieri Agnoli, who was winning the best young riders competition, got into this breakaway, was only 5 minutes and 18 seconds down this morning, and will bring himself right up the order again, as will Robert Kieselowski, 4 minutes 25 seconds down when he started. We saw him climbing really well on the Terminillo, and the really steep climbs, not so sure, but for that sort of power climb, he's good. 4 minutes and 25 seconds down he is so far. Kieselowski, he's even younger than Richie Porte. Bradley Wiggins started the day 10 minutes 54 seconds down, has overhauled that again and right back in the hunt for a top 3 place here in the Giro d'Italia. Linus Gerdemann, Mad Linus, was at 8:14 this morning, and he's got himself into that break and be right up the order again. And Saxo Bank, Richie Porte started the day at 2 minutes 26 seconds down. He'll end the day in the pink jersey, and what a debut for Richie Porte.
What a performance, and you know, he's having a magnificent week of first 10 days in this Giro, and you know, what a day today to go into the race leader's jersey. And it looks like the big favourites maybe do not rate him too much because that he can hang in there. They're allowing him to get up there. When you look at the situation, I suppose the big danger man Tondo, you know, he's another one. Maybe they don't rate him for a 3-week tour, but Sastre like at 10 minutes, and he's going to come back into a Sastre, but you know, it's still not over the big favourites when you see the advantage at the moment, 12:23. But you know, you're allowing the ones who you would expect to be the end of this race up there in the classement, Sastre, Wiggins certainly. The other ones in a very good position. The question is, can they hang in there for the 3 weeks? As a Richie Porte, for example, Arroyo, can he do it? Can Tondo do it? That is the question at the moment.
$10 kilometers to go for the breakaway riders, and to change the whole aspect of this year's Giro d'Italia. Well, the papers will be completely stuffed with this tomorrow. Today, in the Gazzetta dello Sport, it was mainly about the arrival at L'Aquila. And also just looking at who is the best of the Italians, as Alexander Vinokurov shakes his head. Who is the best of the Italians? They're shaking their heads mightily to find out who is going to be the hero of Italy. There's Gerdemann on the front with 9.9 kilometers to go. A nice little article about the history of finishes at L'Aquila. First in 1914, 3rd of June 1914, Azzani was the winner, I think, ahead of Bianchi. And then we came again in 1935, 24th of May 1935, the stage won by Gino Bartali on that occasion. 1954 also, Napoli to Aquila, 27th of May. The last time we were here was Danilo Di Luca. In pink. A real turn up for the books today, as Linus Gerdemann gets about 20 bike lengths over the rest of his breakaway companions. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people out there who've had people like Carlos Sastre down, I know, in their fantasy cycling teams for Giro d'Italia, and were complaining bitterly that they hadn't done anything and let them down, which I think was a bit unfair. But now he's right back in the hunt again. You'll be pleased to know he might still win. 0.5 kilometers to go. Vinokurov seems almost resigned to this now. Sean Basso looking as though he's suffering as well. Garzelli's had a bit of a grin on his face half the time, actually. I think he just knew that game was up for him.
Yes, and they're all suffering here as out front. You know, it's been a long day and a difficult day. The conditions, I think, everybody is getting pretty close to their, you know, the end of their strength, and we can see all the favourites they're chasing. They're suffering a lot, and it's just a matter of keeping it going here, and you know, keep the advantage now down as much as possible, and it's coming down very, very gradually, but it's going to be, you know, a huge leap up in the general classement for some of the favourites again that were really out of the race.
Absolutely. A little bit of pushing on now going from some of the riders in this breakaway. Now they'll start to think about who can take a stage win as well today. Who do you reckon for today, Sean? Do you think they'll all arrive together, or will somebody go on a last-ditch attempt? I think they probably will.
Yes, and there's some riders in here we haven't seen at the front at all, because this group still, the front group, I mean, the breakaway, you know, there's probably, what, 25 riders in there, and some of the ones we haven't seen, who, you know, haven't been pulling in the front. Pinot, for example.
Pinot here,
yes,
yep.
It's one of the ones I was thinking of. We had never seen him, but he's just sitting there waiting, playing the waiting game. And the teams who haven't anything to ride for here today, except for the stage victory, they're not going to do the work earlier on and you know, start pushing along in this break, and Pinot is definitely one of them.
Got a couple of other riders trying to come across to him. If they can. A rider like Ardilla, for example, would go across. Gianpaolo Miller, he's got anything left in the legs. And we'll start to kick off the front. We saw Miller driving it up the slopes here. None of these are categorized climbs. They're all just a nasty little run in now. Here's Jérôme Pinot. Spectacular winner already in the Giro d'Italia from a small breakaway. Fauchard was one of the other riders in the breakaway, as was Arashiro. Arashiro kept driving it on. But Pinot, very canny, and taking the win on that day.
And of course we see Miller there pulling it on, and that's sure for Dan Martin. He's, you know, in this group. We haven't seen him there, but, you know, down at the rear end of the group, we're not getting any information who was there. But when Miller just pulls along there, it tells me that Dan Martin, and this is the perfect finish for him, because it does, you know, kick up in the last number of kilometres, you know, and the finish itself in the last kilometre and a half, a very difficult one.
Somebody's coming after Pinot. Looks like one of the Sky riders to me, is it? No, it's Thomas Vukler. Thomas Vukler of Bouygues Telecom, another rider we've not seen anything of, and could easily do a good ride today, certainly. It's his sort of finish as well.
Is that Moncotti there? The French seem to be chasing each other here.
Yes, well, I wonder why. One Frenchman goes off the front. We're not having that, says the other French riders, other teams. It is Moncotti. And then the next man, fourth in line, is Jan Bekkelens. Once again, very aggressive. Bekkelens, another rider who could try and do something today. Alexander Vinokurov, last day in pink for the foreseeable. Chattering teeth of Vinokurov. He tolerates the cold pretty well, so it just goes to show what awful weather it is today. Pinot has been caught. Bekkelens is the next man in the line. Sastre is right up here. Look at this. And Sastre, does he want to he wants to drive it on for more and more and more time?
Yes, I think he's going to just think of the time here, keep the thing going with just over 6 kilometers to go. When it starts jumping around and then slowing up, that's when you lose a bit of time. So Sastre, he feels that the best thing to do is just push it on here, gain as much time, pull out as much time as possible on the other favourites.
The Liquigas rider, 3 back. I'm not quite sure which one it is. It's let's see when we get a little bit closer as Jan Bekkelens takes the corner. He can handle a bike from Bekkelens, there's no doubt about that. The young Belgian who apparently, Sean was telling me in the European Championships a couple of years ago, rode Sean's bike because he's got nicked. Didn't win it, but that's not down to Sean's bike. Sarah Gauthier on that occasion. The pushing still going on.
Is it a quick step rider we see there? Cataldo,
I think.
Yes. And we see him a number of days ago, very strong in the final, and you know, if you allow him to take a bit of an advantage, and he's another rider who's, you know, probably been just taking it easy today from the quick step team, allow the teams with big interest to push it along all day, and if you can do that, well then, you know, you can do a lot of damage in these final kilometers.
5.5 kilometers to go. This rise up to L'Aquila. It's a nasty finish today, especially within the last 2.5 kilometers. Quickstep would dearly love to get another stage victory here in the Giro d'Italia. Already had one courtesy of Jérôme Pinot and another courtesy of Wout Wayland. 3 would be very nice indeed for them. As Cataldo pushes on. I think we drag back though.
Tondo from Cervélo setting the pace here.
Yeah.
So orders from Sastre, from the team director, just keep the thing going. And Sastre in this one, if his teammate Tondo can do a good job and just keep everybody together, Sastre, you know, he could be a danger one for the state victory here, because it is the last kilometre and a half. It's going to be very, very difficult to get to the line. Everybody, I think, is going to, you know, be so tired. The legs will be sore from the rain all day, and the number of days we've had in the rain, it will be just a battle to make it to the line.
Cataldo's working very hard at the moment, but it shows how strong he is, because they're having trouble shutting him down. It's not all uphill to the finish. You have to be careful on this run-in to L'Aquila. There's a lot of dust around on the roads. It'll turn them into a bit greasy at some point. But maybe enough rain to have washed them clean today. Dario Cataldo. His teammate Jérôme Pinot has already had a stage victory and pushed away from the front of the group. He was brought back by Carlos Sastre, but Cataldo went away straight away. He's got 3.9 kilometers to go in the pouring rain today. Just to recap, before we get to the end of the stage, what has happened today. With about 20 kilometers to go, the peloton was split in two. 56 riders got away, including some really big names. Sastre, Tondo, Wiggins, Kieselowski, Richie, Porte. They all got in the front group. The other big favourites is Jan Bekkelens has shut this down here. I think we've got a Milram rider in there who's just got to the front. Jan Bekelens is certainly one of the riders from Omega Pharma Lotto who's come across. Richie Porte was the other man of note in the front group, but all the big favourites, Evans, the big jersey wearer of Alexander Vinokurov, Scarponi, Basso, Nibali, Gazzelli, they all got caught out. They lost 17 minutes, 38 seconds, and they've still not been able to shut it down under 10 minutes. The big jersey will be changing hands today. The question is who will win the stage, because Richie Porte will pull on the big jersey. 2.7 kilometers to go. Look at the amount of standing water on this road. Not nice, really not nice. I'm not sure who the guy at the front is, Sean, at the moment. Missed out on him. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it isn't Linus Gerdemann, though.
Yes,
somehow.
Yes, he's pushing really strong on the descent, and it looks like Gerdemann. He's known for doing that, and we can see here that he's the other rider's back lands in the wheel there as we come to this 2 kilometers to go. This is the tight corner, so have to be careful on this one.
It is Gerdemann. Very nice. Oh, yes, there we go.
Bekelens
Down goes Bekelens. This is the hairpin that we were talking about. Bekelens. He has to get back on his bike and go. There'll surely be somebody else coming off there. Just braking really hard to get in there. And all taking it super easy. Jan Bekelens getting back into the saddle, and away he goes. Still driving a great big gear. It's Linus Gerdemann who is pushing on at the moment. Bekelens down now, so there's quite a gap now between Bekelens and Jérôme Pinot. And the question is, who has got anything to shut down Linus Gerdemann with under 3 kilometers to go? There is Gerdemann. There's a pretty good gap, Sean.
Yes, and is it Gerdemann? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yes, a good gap, but of course with this finish, just kicking up all the time, it's going to be just difficult for somebody. There's always somebody in the group who will just pull the group along, and they will get swallowed up in the last kilometre. Yes, it is Gerdemann.
It is Gerdemann, and that must be Cataldo who's trying to shut him down now. Well, we're coming up to the very end of the race now. It's been a monumental day here in the Giro d'Italia, and Gerdemann is going to get caught. He's driving up this last few hundred meters. He'll soon go on the 1 kilometer to go banner, and he's just got to be so strong to hang on in there. Whoever is chasing him is going to have to make the move now. Under the 1 kilometer to go banner goes Linus Gerdemann after 261 kilometers of racing. In a break of 56 men he was. And he took huge chances on the descent into the last 1,200 meters. Cataldo is being distanced, and one of the Katusha riders is coming across. It looks like Caruso, is it? Gerdemann has got a man on his wheel now. Katusha finally show their hand, as does Gerdemann. Gerdemann's going to have to get into the wheel, and he's not going to make it. I would suspect it's Caruso. I can't see from up here particularly well. The two men in the grey are Harach and Caruso. It doesn't look big enough to be Harach. It is Gianpaolo Caruso. He's a very good climber, and this finish is uphill. He drives for the line now. He's going to take the longest stage in the Giro d'Italia with 600 meters to go. A perfectly timed finish for Caruso. And behind, Linus Gerdemann's going to have to hang on for second place now. 500 meters to go for the man from Katusha. Dreadful, dreadful weather, and some brave souls have made the side of the line here to welcome the riders home. I bet they didn't expect to have to wait another 13 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever it is down to the main group now. Fokla driving for the line. A very difficult finish indeed. Gianpaolo Caruso of the Katusha squad, who has lurked in the break all day and certainly dealt with the conditions well. He's still just got his jersey and his bare arms on. Look at Carlos Sastre, third in line here behind, I think, Dario Cataldo, is it? And Sastre continuing to push He's not going to take the stage victory, but he is going to make more time back, and he's going to get a placing here. Caruso takes the win. And second is going to be Dario Cataldo, ahead of Carlos Sastre. Then Wiggins makes fourth spot. They're all back in the hunt. Tondo comes over the line. Bekelens comes over the line. Here comes Kieselowski. Quela, Fokla, Ardida, Moncoutier once again missing out. A very difficult finish, Sean, and Gianpaolo Caruso takes the victory.
Yes, a real difficult one, and you know, the conditions, a long day, the wet day, and he just was you know, very strong in that final 800 meters, kilometer from the finish. And Cataldo did a magnificent job. He held on. You know, Sastre was coming up to him, but just coming back inch by inch and just not getting to him. And so Cataldo very, very strong, but Caruso, you know, really powerful in that last 800 meters.
Well, Gianpaolo Caruso becomes the first Italian to win a stage in the Giro d'Italia, and he's done it on the most epic day of the Giro so far, and one of the most extraordinary days in a Grand Tour we've seen in a long, long time. Gianpaolo Caruso timed it perfectly to take the victory. Oh, they got Petrov. That's not Petrov, surely. Didn't even know he was in the break. Well, in fact, it was Yevgeny Petrov, and my sincere apologies, I didn't recognize him at all. We didn't have any indication he was in the break whatsoever. Gianpaolo Caruso was the man, we were told, in the break, along with Juan Harach. So I hold my hands up. Completely useless bit of commentating. Got it totally wrong. Yevgeny Petrov, the winner, and so Italy still without a winner. This is the group of the Maglia Rosa. This comes home to finish. Did an awful lot of work today. A lot of these guys did a lot of work today. Maurice Possoni did a lot of work for Sky, pushing on. And the question is, what will the time gap be? It's shutting down as much as they can. They just seem to be just keeping the pace going, Sean. There's nothing else they can do, really.
No, they just have to keep on just walking all the way to the line, and hopefully the time gap, you know, will come down a bit more for them. But the breakaway, they still, you know, did very well. They run out a lot of time where they started to look about, started to lose time. So I don't think we will see it dropping enormously, and it's going to be that I think 10 minutes for the big favourites. They're going to come in on the front of that breakaway.
Well, it's the last day that Alexander Vinokurov will be wearing pink for a while. We ran into L'Aquila, and it's been a serious earthquake in the Giro as well today. The tremors have been felt all the way down the peloton, because as Pico Pozzato talks to Alexander Vinokurov, Vladimir Karpitz just behind the Katusha rider. Stefano Garzelli is just ahead with 5 kilometers to go. The gap is going to be, what, 12 minutes? Maybe a bit less. What a disaster for the main favourites, and for riders who'd done so well to cover attacks, and for people who'd fought so hard to get back in when they've missed a break. Evans is a prime example, Sean. He'd missed out a couple of times and managed to get back into the lead group when he'd been distanced, and now it's just all gone to pieces because he found himself in the wrong group.
Yes, and as it is for, you know, a lot of the other favourites, they've made a lot of effort, and although the ones up in the break, like of Sastre, you know, he lost time because he was in the crash, of course, on the day when we had the gravel section in the very end of the stage, but he was down on that crash with with Basso and Nibali. So he has had a lot of problems as well. The crash he punctured a number of days ago in the final, lost I think a minute and a half. So it's been a difficult race for him, and he's getting back into it today. Weekends, of course, he's been in many crashes well from the beginning. So he's been taken out and lost a lot of his time because of that. And now they're back into the scene again, and they're up there, and they become one of the favourites again, or one of the possible winners now, because with this plus 10 minutes they're going to be really in there and in with a shout. Where this morning starting out it looked like the race was over for them, or a place in the podium was over.
Our apologies, sincere apology once again for mistaking Yevgeny Petrov for Gianpaolo Caruso at the front. We only had the names of Caruso and Harach as being Katusha riders in the break, and it certainly wasn't Harach. That was for sure. Should have known as soon as he took his specs off. Petrov started the day at 18 minutes odd down on the general classification. He'll make a whole heap of time up, but the most important thing is that he's got the stage victory, and Italy remained without. I thought for a minute that Italy had managed to get their first stage win on a really epic day of the Giro d'Italia, but they didn't. In fact, it was Petrov who took the win, and they remain winless. It's getting a difficult Giro d'Italia for the Italians.
Yes, well, it goes on, and it's difficult for them, and the home race, the national tour, the press not giving you an easy time in the vast number of days, and it will continue on now, and how long will we wait? When will it be when we get an Italian victory? Really, it's difficult to see when. I think the mountain stages with likes of Garzelli, Simoni maybe, for example, Scarponi, those riders, Basso, I think we might have to wait until then, although a breakaway in the next number of days, it's possible that they just could manage a victory out of that.
Around the hairpin then, difficult hairpin that. Jan Bekkelands was the only rider to actually go over. I thought there might be more riders going over, but they've all taken it very gingerly. That's at 1100 metres. This is the group of the Maglia Rosa, all strung out now. A dreadful day for Alexander Vinokurov and the Astana team. A dreadful day for Ivan Basso and Vincenzo Nibali, and an even worse day for Cadel Evans. No teammates around him once again. Well, it's Stefano Garzelli's team of Acquan Sapone and Bertolini on the front, leading them home at the moment. Bertolini, then Garzelli, then in the all black is Cadel Evans. And some hardy souls braving the weather to cheer home the crowd, but to cheer home the group here and the race, but nothing like we've seen in the last couple of days when the sun has been out. So I'll tell you what, though, I bet the crowds will be enormous when we get up to the mountains. This is going to turn into a real epic Giro d'Italia now. What do you do at the end of the day here, Sean? For these riders that are going to go back to the hotel rooms, how do you readjust from being somewhere up there in the top 3 or 4 to being miles back?
Well, you have to see what the general classement this evening, and first of all, you have to get to your hotel as quickly, get away from the finish. If you haven't to go to a podium, you just get to the hotel and get a shower and get massage and try and recover, because it's all about recovery, and especially the days we've been having again today, the longest stage in the race, very difficult conditions. The recovery is so important, and you really look at the classement tonight and then you study it, but it's a situation now where we have the favourites, which we thought were out of the race, are back in there, and it's going to make a very interesting final week. And this week, of course, the final one of this Giro, it's a very, very difficult week with a lot of mountain top finishes and very, very difficult stages right through.
Yeah, we've got 3 more stages of over 200 kilometres before they get to the rest day on the 24th. Pozzato, the man at the front, and Garzelli, and Vinokurov, then Basso, and it's going to be a tough one for these riders. Amazingly, the rain stopped. Still terribly, terribly wet. Well, the gap is going to be 12 minutes or so. Scarponi, Carpets, Volker Malema, I've just seen go past there. And what a day here in the Giro d'Italia. The day that turned the race on its head, and we managed to get the winner wrong. It happens. Pozzato in the Italian champions outfit on the right-hand side. You can see all the favourites in here. If you're only just turning on to see what's happened now, this is not the leading group coming home. This is a group, as you can see, at over 12 minutes down, including the race leader, Alexander Vinokurov. Scarponi is at the front here. Garzelli is in this group. Evans, Nibali, Pinotti, Carpets, Basso, Malema, all in the group. And it's really turned the race on its head, because in the front group, riders who we thought were out of the game, Sastre, Tondo was right up there as well. But other riders like Richie, Porte, riders close to the GC in that front group. Well, we'll stay with you live to get the overall standings, and then we'll do our quick visit to Plaid and Armstrong. Richie Porte then takes over the pink jersey ahead of David Arroyo at 1:42, Kieselowski at 1:56, Tondo at 3:54, Agnoli, Efemkin, Gerdeman and Sastre back in the top 8, 7 minutes and 9 seconds down. What an extraordinary day.